Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto has infinite chakra part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Standing upon a bridge were two figures. The first one was tall and had pale skin. He had long black hairs that fell lazily behind his back. He was wearing the standard attire of an Anbu ninja, although a long white coat covered it while a purple belt held the coat. This person was Orochimaru, the Snake Sannin and former member of the hidden village of Konoha. The second figure standing in front of the former was wearing a strange attire for a ninja. Indeed, he was wearing an orange pant and an orange vest with some black lines on it. He had spiky blonde hairs and striking blue eyes. The last distinctive feature was the whiskers marks that adorned his face. This was none other than Naruto Uzumaki, genin of the hidden village of Konoha. Currently the two were talking, or rather Orochimaru was doing the talk while Naruto listened, becoming angrier by the second. How this situation came to be was really simple. During the mission to rescue the current Kazekage, Sakura Harino, Naruto's teammate, fought against Sasori of the Red Sand, a member of Akatsuki. The latter, upon his defeat, admitted to Sakura that a meeting was scheduled with one of his spies at the very bridge they were currently at. The meeting was with someone very close to Orochimaru. Seeing the chance to get some information on Sakura's former teammate Sasuke Uchiha, who fled the village and became a missing nin, and maybe retrieve him from the clutch of the Snake Sannin, a team composed of Naruto Uzumaki, Sakura Harino, Sai and Yamato was formed to impersonate the late Sasori and go to the meeting. At first everything went accordingly to the plan, with Yamato fooling Sasori's spy, who was revealed to be Kabuto, and having him reveal everything he knew, but the team soon discovered that it was traps set up by Orochimaru himself to kill his former associate. If that wasn't enough, the Snake Sannin was present at the meeting, further complicating things. It wasn't long before Yamato's disguise was seen through, and it was only thanks to Naruto's quick reaction that he was still alive, as the latter, like a raging bull, moved from his hidden spot to the bridge where Yamato stood and pushed the latter out of harm's way. Unfortunately, this left Naruto standing alone on the bridge with Orochimaru and Kabuto behind him. Kabuto tried to attack him from behind, but Naruto used a shockwave attack to push him back while destroying the bridge at the same time. Even the members of his team were affected by the attack, but Naruto was far too corrupted by the Kyuubi influence to care, and quickly pursued the cause of his anger, Orochimaru. Yamato looked around himself, only seeing destruction. He assessed the situation and knew that they were in deep shit. How did everything went so wrong? Sakura was injured because of Kyuubi's chakra. Sai is nowhere to be seen, and the wood clone I created to follow Naruto and Orochimaru was destroyed. What worse could happen now? He should have known not to tempt the devil, because what was happening between Naruto and Orochimaru would seal the fate of the whole shinobi world. With Naruto, there is a saying that no secrets can stay hidden forever. If Konoha knew how right it was, they wouldn't have done several things in the past. While Naruto in his Kyuubi form with three tails lazily twitching behind his back was fighting an amused Orochimaru, the latter couldn't keep his mouth shut. He wanted to understand several things about Naruto that had always puzzled him. The first and foremost thing was why Naruto didn't use the unreal ability conferred to him by the Kage Bunshin to improve himself. After all, it was common knowledge that this special cloning technique allowed their user to retain the memories of the clone upon its destruction. He couldn't understand how someone like Naruto, who always claimed he wanted to be Hokage, wouldn't use this advantage to become powerful quickly. So he decided to get the information at the source, not knowing that it would trigger the birth of a dangerous entity that would leave its mark on this world. While dodging a punch from an enraged Naruto, he put some distance between the two of them while talking. I have always wondered, Naruto-kun, why do you serve Konoha so willingly even after what they have done to your country? The question made Naruto pause, trying to understand what the one who caused all his suffering was talking about. Orochimaru looked in surprise at Naruto after seeing the questioning look that was sent to him. The surprise was transformed in a wide grin that threatened to split his mouth. Don't tell me you don't even know how your mother's country was destroyed? But Naruto kept looking at him strangely, trying to wrap his mind on the fact that Orochimaru knew his mother. My mother? He tentatively said, as the last word seemed foreign to him. This stopped Orochimaru in his track completely, and he narrowed his eyes while looking at Naruto. You don't know who she is, don't you? Mirth could be heard from his tone of voice, which served to enrage Naruto further at being mocked for something he had no control on, just like when he was little. I will be damned, Sarutobi, sensei succeeded after all. Don't talk about Aji-san like that, bastard. The reaction was immediate for Naruto. Aji-san, Orochimaru tried the words slowly. You even call him grandfather, after what was done to you by his consent? What was done to me? What are you talking about? He was the only one to come to my help when I was little. He saved me from everything and you are trying to tarnish his memory. I will. He didn't finish his sentence as Orochimaru interrupted him with a loud laughter. Saved you? Kukukuku, how can you be so naive? Do you really think that a Hokage cannot control his house shinobi? Do you really think that a shinobi can disobey the order of his Kage without serious repercussion? This shows just how little you know about the way a village is run. A ninja village is not a democracy. It is a dictatorship. Everything the Hokage says is law. Don't be deceived by the tough act shown by the civilians. In the end it is the Hokage decision that matter. Orochimaru said with a sneer on his face. When did he come to save you? Naruto was about to answer when he was interrupted. Let me guess, he came after you were beaten, didn't he? And each time, he reinforced his image of a hero to you, and like a dumb child you were and apparently still is, you believed him. Naruto wanted to say something to contradict what his hated foe had told him, but couldn't find anything to contradict him. But still, it wouldn't do to trust an enemy just because their logic was without fail. Unfortunately for him, what Orochimaru was about to say next would forever destroy the trust he held to Konoha. I suppose Sarutobi was right to brainwash you to be nothing more than a puppet. After all, it wouldn't do for Konoha to lose their Jinchuriki, and the only son of their greatest hero, the Yondaime Hokage. Orochimaru spoke to himself, but he didn't take into account the fact that Naruto's hearing was enhanced by Kyuubi chakra running through his system. So when he raised his head, he was surprised to see a wide-eyed Naruto looking at him with shock clearly written on his face. He didn't take long to deduce that Naruto wasn't aware of the identity of his parents, and that amused him greatly. Now I am beginning to understand everything I have noticed so far. They don't trust you, Kukukuku, he said to gain Naruto's attention back to himself, as he was about to ask the real question he wanted answered in the first place. Tell me, how is it that despite the amount of time you have used the Kage Bunshin, you still don't know the secret ability it provides you? Although he was still numb from the information he got, Naruto was still able to understand what was said but only had one thing to answer to that. What secret? And just like he feared, a smirk of superiority appeared on Orochimaru's lips. For his part, Orochimaru was about to roll himself on the ground from the sheer stupidity exhibited by Naruto. But then his eyes narrowed in confusion. No matter how hard they tried to hide the ability of the shadow clones, Naruto-kun should have noticed by now that his clones' memories come back to him once they are dispelled. Especially with how many times he uses them. It must be an external tampering then. But I wonder what would happen if he were to learn of the deception that's around him. Would he turn his back to the leaf like I once did? Kukukuku, it is worth a try. He looked at the impatiently waiting Naruto. Let me tell you a secret, Naruto-kun. The jutsu that you affectionately use without any consideration of its real purpose is a very well-guarded secret technique created by the Uzumaki clan. It was later added to Konoha's forbidden scroll by the Nidaime Hokage. This jutsu is in fact the reason why Konoha has always stood on top of the elemental countries. Naruto looked at Orochimaru with shock on his face. His first reaction was to interrupt him to ask questions that passed through his mind, but in the end he chose not to, knowing that the Sannin would tell him. Seeing this made Orochimaru smirk even more. Look at that, he can control himself after all, Kukukuku. You see, the shadow clone jutsu possesses a unique ability that is not present in the other kind of clone jutsu, bear a select few. The ability is to pass on to the user the memories of the clones once they are dispelled. Only with this, you can imagine the worth of this jutsu in information gathering purpose. But the real use of this jutsu is in the training department. Indeed, with this jutsu, the user could master what would take others months to learn in a few days. How do you think Konoha was able to produce so many powerful young ninjas while those from other villages only reached this level after decades of training? Every generation, the elders find someone with huge chakra reserve, then they teach him the shadow clone jutsu to increase his progressing rate. Sarutobi, the White Fang, your father the Yondaime Hokage, Itachi, all of them were trained by using this jutsu. Orochimaru finished while snarling in anger at the end. Everything he said was the truth, but what angered him was the fact that the elders deemed him not worthy of this training method. Even to this day, he didn't know why they didn't select him or any member of his team for that matter. After all, they were all genius in their own field. Of course, with time, he had learned the jutsu like Jiraiya surely had. It would explain his strange improvement in such a short time during the war. Naruto, on the other hand, was digesting everything that was said and came to the only logical conclusion. Something was done to him to not be able to get the memories of the clones once they are destroyed. With the amount of clones I have used in my life, it is impossible for me not to notice it, even if I am as dumb as they claim me to be. He thought while trying with all his might to control his rising anger, but to no avail. The more he listened to Orochimaru, the angrier he became. He didn't know why, but he knew one thing: if this kept going, he would lose his mind to the beast inside him. I see you reached the same conclusion that I did. Something was done to you to stop you from using the jutsu to your benefits, because let's face it, With the number of clones you can make, you could reach Kage level in terms of knowledge in a few weeks. They must really be scared of what you will do to them for revenge, it seems. Kukukuku. Like a dam, Naruto snapped at that and rocketed toward Orochimaru before punching him so hard that the latter passed through several trees before stopping. Orochimaru rose from the ground while removing the blood that slowly sank from his mouth, his smile never leaving his face. Did I hit a sensitive spot? Kukukuku. I must say that I am really disappointed. You aren't even close to Sasuke-kun level. Did Jiraiya really train you, or did he simply make you rely on the fox power? I wouldn't be surprised if he did that just so you would be easily subdued in case you ever went rogue. Kukukuku. And like Orochimaru expected, Naruto finally lost it. Slowly, his form became that of a miniature Kyuubi, and then a fourth tail appeared behind his back. The bloodlust coming from the chakra was so potent that Yamato and Sakura were able to sense it despite the distance they were from the area. For his part, Orochimaru looked at the transformation with mirth, not caring that he was facing an unstable Jinchuriki. With Yamato. Sakura and Yamato were standing on what was left of the bridge, looking at the fight that was going on between Naruto and Orochimaru. The shockwave that Naruto created when he pushed Kabuto away wounded Sakura, but she wasn't Tsunade's apprentice for nothing. While it took her some time to properly heal herself and Yamato, she did it. Now the two of them were ready to go after Orochimaru too, but before they could even move from their spot, they saw a shape moving like a fallen meteorite toward their spot. Before long, an explosion occurred to their left, raising a cloud of dust. Once the dust was lifted, they could only stare dumbly at the animal-like beast that had become Naruto, pushed hard on the ground by a sword that extended from Orochimaru to Naruto. After a moment, the sword was retracted, leaving the mini Kyuubi alone with his teammates. Sakura could only stare in shock at what had become of her teammate, while Yamato quickly regained his composures. That is why I am a member of this team, he told himself before going through hand seals and stopping before concentrating on the necklace that Naruto wore. Suddenly, several pillars of wood erupted from the ground in a circle formation around Naruto. Then Naruto's necklace glowed green. The green light slowly recovered the beast, while removing the effect of the Kyuubi chakra. Before long, Naruto was back to his original shape but still stayed unconscious, much to the wonder of his teammates. Yamato, Sensei, what do we do? Orochimaru, Kabuto and maybe Sai are escaping. If we do nothing, then this whole mission will end up in a failure. Sakura asked her superior, not even once caring about what Naruto was going through. Yamato noticed it, of course, but he filled it for later inquiry, as even though it was shocking, it was still the truth. They were given a mission, they couldn't afford to fail it so badly. They at least needed to eliminate Sai before he succeeded in whatever mission he was sent for. You are right, by waiting here, we lose track of them. I will leave a clone with Naruto while we keep going. If we are lucky, Naruto will quickly get back to his feet to help us. Sakura snorted at that. Help? The only thing he has done since the start of this mission is to complicate things even more. How reckless can he be to attack Orochimaru like that? Sakura said angrily to a silent Yamato who had nothing to say in Naruto's defense. While that may be true, don't forget we are going against one of the Sannin and every subordinates he may have in his base. We need all the help we can get. Yamato replied before creating a wood clone whom took Naruto's body with him and went to a hidden spot to protect himself for any stranded attack. Yamato looked at Sakura, who put back her gloves on and with an authoritative voice said, Let's go. The latter nodded before following closely her superior, all the while thinking of her soon-to-be meeting with the love of her life. Sasuke-kun, I am coming. While his teammates went away to chase Orochimaru, Naruto was in a completely different situation. He looked around himself and only saw corridors going everywhere. He could feel water above his ankle. I am in my mind then, he thought after a while, having recognized where he was. Looking in front of him, he saw a red light at the end of the corridor he was in. He knew very well where this path would take him, but he wasn't in the mood to deal with an enraged fox demon, so for the first time since he came inside his mind, he took the opposite path. He didn't know for how long he walked that path, he just kept moving. In a way, it was refreshing to just walk aimlessly like that. This allowed him to think about his life, something he always dreaded on, as it made him realize just how bad it really was compared to others. But this time he didn't have the luxury of ignoring his thoughts. The same words kept repeating inside his mind, the Yondaime Hokage is my father, and no one ever told me that. He didn't know what hurt him the most, the fact that he was naive enough not to try to get information on his parents, or the fact that a conspiracy seemed to exist just to keep this information away from him. He had no delusion that Tsunade and even Jiraiya wasn't among the conspirators. When did I begin to call her by her name? He silently thought to himself while slowly moving one leg after the other. It was during this walk that he noticed the more he was away from the fox cage, the easier it was for him to think. It is like a weight was lifted from me. Everything is so clear now. He could still hear the rumbling of the fox, but it was now far too low for him to care. Do I really care about anyone now? I can count on my hands the number of persons I would say I really care about, but what if Orochimaru is right? What if Konoha has somehow caused the destruction of my mother home village? For the first time in his life, Naruto was stuck. Usually, upon facing a problem, he would deal with it without thinking, hoping for the best. But with the faculty to think clearly, he could see that only his luck allowed him to stay alive to this day. Fighting against a former member of the Seven Swordsmen of the Mist, against Orochimaru during the Chunin exam, against a fully released Jinchuriki, all of this while I was still a green genin. It is a wonder I am still alive right now. He was about to continue his introspection when he saw a white light coming from the end of the corridor he now was at. This stopped him, as it was the first time he saw a light so white. Knowing that the last time he saw a light coming from the end of a corridor, he met a demonic entity, he cautiously walked toward the light expecting the worst. But when he finally reached the room that was lighted by the white light, he couldn't help the gasp of all that came out of his mouth, because in front of him, he could see a giant gears system that stretched even beyond his current sight. It was really a sight to see, the way each turbine made the ones next to them slowly rotate around themselves. What made this even more of an art was the pale white light that surrounded every turbine. Naruto looked at it, and a rush of information came to his mind. Suddenly he knew the purpose of this gear system. He knew that it represented the seal that stopped the Kyuubi from escaping. It was its physical representation. He also instinctively knew that the faster the gear was rotating, the weaker the seal became. Upon finishing his inspection, he saw a strange hole at the center of the foremost turbine. The hole looked like some kind of keyhole. Does this mean there is a key that could allow me to control this seal? Naruto thought while slowly moving closer to it. While looking intently at it, he was reminded of the day Jiraiya tampered with the seal on his stomach to increase the amount of demonic chakra he could control. This made him narrow his eyes. Did Jiraiya found a way to access this room? This simple thought scared him because it was like having a sword on his throat ready to end his life at any time. After all, should the Kyuubi escape, he would die. Banishing those thoughts for later, he contemplated the light that was around the gear in front of him. He didn't know why, but it felt foreign to him, almost alien-like. It was neither like normal chakra nor like demonic chakra, but he knew that it was some kind of energy. The way the light shimmered made him wonder just where it comes from. Curious as he was, he slowly reached the white light with his right arm. He couldn't have known that the simple fact of interacting with this light would drastically change his life. There is a reason why gods aren't allowed to directly interact with the world of the livings. The Yondaime didn't care about that little fact and chose to involve an unworldly entity in the affairs of the humans. And not some low entity, but the Shinigami himself, the one who controls death literally. When the Shinigami made the seal to contain the Kyuubi, he used his own brand of energy to do the deed. Although the use of its own energy would make the seal all but unbreakable unless someone used a specific seal to counter it, it came with the fact that a tiny bit of the Shinigami's energy was left behind to power the seal. When Naruto came into contact with it, the light was expanded a little until it covered his whole body. Only by coming into contact with this energy, Naruto's body was irrevocably changed. Indeed, because of the sentience of the energy, it tried to assimilate itself with Naruto's, but was stopped because Naruto's body was foreign to it. Seeking a way out of this situation, it analyzed Naruto's body until he came into contact with his chakra. The energy quickly tried to mix itself with the chakra but found that it couldn't completely because it was infinite, while Naruto's chakra was finite. It was like trying to put a whole ocean in a glass. So it made a decision that would create a being whose potential was simply infinite. He decided to make Naruto's supply of chakra infinite too. This was done by rewriting Naruto's DNA. Now instead of forming chakra by mixing spiritual and physical energy, the chakra would come from the void itself. Naruto's body would create several microscopic black holes that would transform their energy into chakra. This process would be repeated every time Naruto used chakra, making it infinite. The interaction between this energy and Naruto had other side effect. Were he still conscious, he would have seen a ripple of energy that exploded from him. The energy traveled through his whole mindscape, destroying everything he found that didn't belong to Naruto's body. Because the Kyuubi was sealed at birth, the energy considered it safe, and left it alone, much to the Kyuubi happiness as it recognized whom the energy belonged to and was clearly scared of it. The energy reached a hidden room in Naruto mindscape. The entrance to the room was blocked by what looked like chains made of wood, metals and even gold. Detecting that those chains weren't part of Naruto's body, the energy easily tore through them before blasting the door open. This had a horrible side effect, but horrible for whom, that would be determined in the future. Once the door was destroyed, Naruto was assaulted with memories that he didn't know he possessed. He saw himself beating Mizuki to a pulp. He saw himself using the clones to do the menial work that were the D-rank mission. He saw himself fighting against Zabuza to free Kakashi from his prison. He saw himself fighting against an enraged Gaara. The memories kept coming and he experienced them completely. He didn't know it, but those memories were changing him. He was gaining experience from their lives despite their shortness. While all of this was happening, the other members of his team were fighting for their lives and were now regretting their choice to continue the mission without having a heavy hitter like Naruto was. The leftovers of the rescue team finally reached one of Orochimaru's hidden bases. Several times, they have lost trail of their targets, but luck seemed to be on their side as each of their guesses on where to go next paid off. Now they could only look in wonder at the facility that stood before them. Because the base was built underground, the only visible part of it was the entrance. Sakura, the one-tracked mind ninja she is, was about to get through the wide-open entrance when her team leader stopped her. "What do you think you are doing?" Yamato asked furiously but still low enough so that they wouldn't be overheard. "What does it look like?" "I am moving in to look for Sasuke-kun. Is it not our mission?" Sakura yelled back, not caring if he was the leader or not. She was about to meet her Sasuke after almost 3 years of separation, and she wasn't about to be denied. "Are you trying to get us killed? This entrance will obviously be guarded. I told you earlier that we didn't have the manpower to make any frontal assault. Don't make me regret taking you with me in this mission," he said while applying enough pressure on Sakura's shoulder to show just how serious he was. Fortunately, she wasn't stupid enough to dismiss what Yamato had said and calmed herself. "Then what do we do then?" she asked finally, not hiding the sarcasm in her tone. If Yamato noticed, he didn't react to it. Instead, he looked around himself trying to find another way in. It wasn't long before he concluded that there was no other way in. He was about to share his finding or lack thereof with his subordinate when a violent explosion occurred several hundred meters away from their position. He looked at Sakura and quickly nodded at her as the two blurred toward the source of the explosion. Meanwhile, a confrontation between two exceptionally talented ninjas for their age was taking place. One of them was none other than Sai, a member of the rescue team sent by Konoha. He was standing at the bottom of the crater that was formed by the earlier explosion. He was looking impassively at the figure that stood at the edge of the crater. The figure was looking at him as if he was a mere insect. The arrogance that he displayed would have been awkward on any other ninja his age, but not on him. It fitted him perfectly. This person was the target the rescue team was after, the man, or child, who was hailed as a prodigy by his peers in Konoha, Sasuke Uchiha. He was looking at the one that just tried to kill him in his sleep with a lazy gaze. Slowly, though, he detached his gaze from his opponent and looked at the two shapes that materialized beside Sai. He quickly recognized one of them and was quick to voice his findings. Sakura. Upon hearing the voice that she had dearly missed for so long, Sakura's body froze in shock before slowly looking up toward the person that spoke. Her heart was beating so fast that she thought those present could hear it. Finally, she posed her eyes on the man she loved so much and couldn't stop herself from muttering Sasuke-kun. The above-mentioned quickly analyzed each of his opponents with his Sharingan activated, cataloging them all and assessing their threat level. Having finished his analyze, he looked back at Sakura with no emotions whatsoever. "I see you are still chasing after me even after all these years." The Konoha ninja said nothing to this. "I am curious though, two persons seems to be missing. Maybe they have finally given up on me. That would be the first logical action they did after a long time." Sakura gritted her teeth at that. She had thought that after all this years of being separated her love would have missed them, particularly her, a little, but it seems that it wasn't the case. But misguided as she was, she didn't understand what her mind told her. Instead, she fabricated a dream world upon which Sasuke missed her but hid it well in front of her team members. Sai, on the other hand, was analyzing the situation he was in and was frustrated to say the least. Of course, on the outside he didn't express any emotions at all. After all, it wouldn't do for anyone outside of Root to know that their members still had their emotions. The rumor that said no members of Root could feel any emotions was a lie spread by their leader to instill even more fear to their enemies. Each members of the Root were specifically chosen because they had a goal that went along that of their hidden division. But coming back to the matter at hand, he was frustrated because he hadn't counted in the presence of his assigned team. He was sent on this mission for one goal and only, to kill Sasuke Uchiha before Orochimaru could take over his body. But he also had another directive to never let any of his teammates assess his real level. Because of their presence, he couldn't fight at 100% against his target, and this was bad in itself. Thanks to their earlier confrontation, he had assessed that Sasuke was stronger than him by a small margin, but that was if he went all out, and obviously it was out of question right now. Before he could elaborate a plan to get out of the precarious situation he was currently in, a chill went down his spine. He looked behind him to see Sasuke standing there with his back facing him. When did he move? Sai thought, seriously shocked, because this changed everything, every scenario he could cook up to deal with Sasuke. He didn't think that his target would possess such immense speed after all. Meanwhile, Sasuke was looking intently at Yamato. "Going by your attire, you must be the jounin in charge of this mission. I know that Konoha want me back for reasons unknown to me as of right now, so they wouldn't send just about anyone to fulfill this mission. The question then is, what makes you special enough to warrant you taking part in this? Yamato was a little surprised at the nonchalant way the Uchiha was behaving, especially the fact that he deliberately showed his back to an enemy as if the latter was inconsequential. After a moment of thinking carefully on his response, he finally answered, I suppose you will find out soon enough if you don't comply to our demands. Sasuke raised an eyebrow at that, a trait he picked up from his brother. Your demands? Care to enlighten me then? He was really curious now. Does Konoha really become arrogant enough to make any kind of negotiation with their nuke neens, or have they really fallen so low in manpower to the point of getting any ninja possessing a bloodline that could increase their power? Sasuke was asking himself this question while waiting for what the obvious leader of the team would say. They are quite simple really. Uchiha Sasuke, on the order of the Godame Hokage, you are to desist whatever actions you were doing and come back to the village to face punishment for your treason. Failure to comply will result in you being dealt with as I see fit. If Yamato expected a reaction from Sasuke, he was sorely mistaken. The latter didn't even flinch at the disguised threat to his person. Instead, he kept looking at the Konoha Jounin with nothing but apathy. And I suppose you are the one in charge of dealing with me? You will soon find that quest to be beyond your capabilities. Upon saying this, Yamato felt that the air around him had changed. He saw Sasuke moves his hand to the handle of his sword and slowly removes it from the scabbard. Knowing that it meant business, he moved through hand seals while Sai quickly turned around and reached for Sasuke's. He may be fast, but he have to see an attack before he can react, thought Sai as he stopped Sasuke from removing his sword, or at least he thought he did, because the Sasuke in front of him vanished in the wind and appeared a few meters away from his earlier position, slowly walking toward Yamato. Yamato widened his eyes at that. He is too fast. What kind of training did he went through to attain this speed? He thought while he finished his seals and pointed his right palm towards Sasuke. Instantly, wood erupted from it and charged its target. Sasuke, seeing this, dodged to the left before jogging towards Yamato. By the time he reached his target, Sasuke's sword was cackling with lightning moving through it. Yamato, trying to block the attack, reached for a kunai and put it in Sasuke's sword path. The kunai did nothing though, as the sword easily pierced the weapon before reaching Yamato's heart. But thanks to his quick reflexes, the latter had transformed his exposed chest in wood to lessen the damage. Sai moved towards Sasuke, trying to take him by surprise, but before he could reach his target, a wall of lightning surrounded Sasuke, thoroughly shocking him and rendering him unconscious. Having taken care of Sai, Sasuke looked back at Yamato with the same impassive look. Mokutan Jutsu then? How fitting for a wood user to fall at the hand of an Uchiha, don't you think? Yamato couldn't respond though, as the sword on his shoulder was giving him a numbing sensation. The more he was affected by it, the harder it was for him to keep his consciousness. Yamato still had the energy needed to look at the final member of his team, and couldn't help but wonder why she wasn't reacting. You must be wondering why she hasn't reacted yet, don't you? Yamato slowly looked at Sasuke in confusion. It is quite simple really, she is trapped in a genjutsu. She may have perfect chakra control, but that doesn't make her immune to my illusions. This deeply shocked Yamato. When did he get the time to cast an illusion on her? What kind of monster did he become after training with Orochimaru? Yamato wondered just before losing consciousness. At the same time, Orochimaru and Kabuto appeared above Sasuke at the edge of the crater he was in. Sasuke-kun has progressed very much if he was able to dispatch them so quickly. Kabuto mused out loud while Orochimaru just smirked. And soon I will take over that body, kukukuku. Meanwhile, Sasuke moved toward the still standing Sakura and toyed with the idea of killing her right here. It will certainly save me the trouble of dealing with her later on. He thought, and was about to do the deed when he felt his arm being restricted by another hand. He looked over his shoulder at the one that stopped him. Why did you stop me, Orochimaru? The mention just looked at Sasuke's Sharingan and salivated at the idea of having the dojutsu before he answered. Don't be so hasty, Sasuke-kun, they still serve a purpose if only to reduce the number of ninjas working for Akatsuki. After all, you don't want to face all of them while fighting your brother, do you? Sasuke merely scoffed at that but still dropped his hand in an approving manner. This action made Orochimaru smirk in triumph at being able to manipulate the young ninja so easily. He knew that Sasuke always listened to anything he said whenever he made allusion to his hated brother. This had allowed Orochimaru to manipulate him over the past years. Kabuto also appeared beside the duo and asked the question that was on their mind. Then what do we do about them, Orochimaru-sama? Before any of them could answer, they felt a familiar chakra appear at the edge of the crater. Sasuke didn't even have to turn around to know whom the chakra belonged to. It seems that today is a special day. The only person left is Kakashi, and Team 7 would be back again, don't you think, Naruto? After saying that, Sasuke turned around and faced his longtime nemesis, the only person he had ever considered a friend, if only for a short time. For his part, the figure that appeared looked at Sasuke, and then at everyone present there with an apathetic gaze that unnerved them. At first glance, they could see that nothing had changed from the troublesome blonde each of them had met, but the more they looked at him, the stronger the feeling of wrongness was present. Before they could understand where the feeling came from, Naruto disappeared in a cloud of smoke, showing them that it had been a shadow clone all along. But the only one to understand the meaning of this action was Orochimaru, who, though surprised, smirked in anticipation of what that would mean for the future. They were about to return to their decision-making about the downed shinobis when they felt a huge amount of chakra coming towards them at a speed that defied all logics. The speed was so high that even Orochimaru was shocked and especially frightened, as it reminded him of someone he never wanted to fight against, the Yondaime Hokage. With Naruto. It didn't take long for Naruto to finish reviewing all his memories, and by the end of it, he was a changed man. The memories contained everything his clones had seen ever since he has been able to create them. To him it was like all the major events of his life happened a few moments ago. Because of this, he was able to recall every piece of information he has ever been subjected to. This had the benefit of increasing his observation capability to a very outstanding level, far outshining high-level ninjas. But the direst effect was the fact that he was able to see his life with a different perspective, and what he saw is what really changed him. He couldn't understand how he could behave like he had been doing until now, and that sickened him. To think that I would do everything I could to hide from the reality of this world. Naruto thought as he looked around himself, and found that he was still in the strange room he had discovered, the room that contained the physical representation of the seal. He looked at his body and quickly noticed the change in his energy pattern. Earlier he wouldn't have even noticed it, but ever since he went further away from the fox it was like his mind was becoming clearer than before. What is going on? Why can I think much better than before? Naruto asked himself. He didn't expect an answer to his questions as they were rhetoric anyway, but he was again pleasantly surprised when the answer came to his mind. This room is inside my mind. The Kyuubi is in its own dimension. The closer I am to the beast, the farther I am from my own mind. Because I have been assimilating the Kyuubi's dimension as my mind, it was able to manipulate my body, thus limiting my capabilities. This stunned Naruto, as he didn't know where the answer came from. It was like the room possessed answers to questions related to his seal and the Kyuubi but nothing else. He shrugged at that and decided to investigate later on, as right now he needed to understand what had happened to his body. And like before, the answer came to his mind. By coming into contact with the Shinigami's energy, my body was irreversibly modified. Now mixing spiritual and physical energy doesn't produce my chakra. Instead, transforming the energy coming from the void in chakra creates it. The void energy is created by my body every time I use my reserve, making it limitless. Again, Naruto was shocked. Not by the part concerning the changes of his body, but about the fact that he had an infinite supply of chakra now. He quickly began to think on the ramification of this new information and came to a strange and satisfying conclusion. He didn't need the Kyuubi anymore. The Kyuubi is only a source of chakra to me. Now that I have an infinite supply of it, I don't need it anymore. He thought before remembering that said beast was also the cause of his quick regeneration. I will have to find a way to replace that. This was his last thought before looking around himself, specifically at the keyhole in front of him, and then he willed himself back to his body. While Naruto was checking his mindscape, his team leader Yamato, or rather his clone, was standing guard over his body. He was monitoring Naruto quite closely to see if any changes happened to the latter. That is why he quickly noticed the stirring of his charged body. Knowing that Naruto was waking up, he straightened himself and waited for the genin to get his bearing. He had several questions to ask his charge as he was able to notice the almost complete disappearance of the Kyuubi chakra inside his circulatory system, something that was both unforeseen and unexpected. Upon opening his eyes, Naruto came face to face with Yamato. He was about to lash out at him because of the surprise but quickly stopped himself from doing that. He sighed and dropped his head in a way that the upper part of his face was hidden from his leader. "How long was I out?" he asked with a groggy voice. "An hour or so," Yamato answered. "Ah, okay. But where are the others?" Naruto continued with his head still dropped as if he was too tired to raise it. "They continued the mission. Currently the original Yamato and Sakura are following Orochimaru to his base. We were hoping that by following them, we would come in contact with the target Sasuke." Before he could continue though, Naruto, whose voice changed from tired to cold in an instant, interrupted him. "Are you telling me that you are a clone?" Yamato gave a positive answer, not understanding the apparent anger of his charge. "Are you kidding me? What the hell?" Naruto raged in his mind as his newly developed observation skills put the pieces together. But he had to confirm his theories first before acting. "So you just left my body out there with only a clone to protect me? What if Akatsuki chose this very moment to attack? What would have happened? He asked a silent Yamato who was considering his answer carefully. The chance of Akatsuki attacking us right now is very small, if not dismal, as they don't know where we are right now. Moreover, don't forget we have a mission to finish. A mission that is of very high priority. Yamato finally answered. Compared to my survival, isn't it? Naruto shot back to a silent Yamato who was too surprised by the conclusion Naruto came up with. But to Naruto, the silence was enough to answer his question. So you mean to tell me that even after all those years of service to the village, they still consider Sasuke more important than me? This time, Naruto had raised his head and was looking directly at Yamato's eyes, freezing the latter because of the rage that was present in Naruto's eyes. Of course, Yamato knew that Naruto meant the village council when he said they. Finding nothing to counter this verbal attack, Yamato decided to change subject quickly as he didn't want a verbal battle right now with the situation at hand. I don't know where you are going with those conclusions of yours, but what I can tell you is that this is very far from the truth, and you know it. Do you really think that Tsunade would assign me to this mission if she didn't care? Inside his mind, Yamato was proud of his comeback, as it was notoriously known that Naruto thought of the Hokage as his mother or something close to it. He knew that the latter would quickly stop this nonsense he came up with once Tsunade was mentioned. But what he didn't know was that by mentioning Tsunade as the one who chose him to be the team leader, he had revealed to Naruto that she wasn't to be trusted right now. Indeed, Naruto at first had thought that the council went behind the Hokage back to pull something like that, but now that he had this new information, he knew that he couldn't completely trust her for now, not until he had more information. He was interrupted from his thoughts when Yamato continued speaking. Be that as it may, we have to get going. I don't know what is going on right now with the original and Sakura. They could be in danger for all we know, so we have to move from here and look for them. Saying this, he turned his back on Naruto and looked at the direction the rest of the team took off. Are you well enough to go? He asked to his charge that was still looking at him with the same cold look in his eyes. Yes, was the quiet answer he received, followed by Yamato. Taicho, I have a question for you. Yamato turned around. Ask away. Why don't you simply communicate with the original to get the direction they are at, like you did earlier today? That is because I can only communicate with him if he is in a range of 500 meters radius. I have lost contact with him for a while now. Yamato answered before Naruto smiled for the first time since they began this conversation. I see. That is good to know. He muttered while Yamato looked at him strangely. Before he could wonder what Naruto meant by that, his eyes widened in shock as he coughed blood. He looked down on his chest and found a blue chakra arm that pierced him from his back. After further investigation, he saw that the arm came from underground and erupted beside Naruto, connecting him with the arm. How? Yamato was able to mumble despite the fact he was dying. Naruto looked at him with a cold gaze before answering. Your mistake was to think that I would forever stay under your foot, that you would never be challenged. You assume that I cannot read between the lies you are feeding me. You are so sure of my loyalty to Konoha that you carelessly give up your secrets, thinking that I am too stupid to make use of them. But I will tell you something that you will take to your grave. Judgment Day is coming and all the guilty will face my wrath. The last thing Yamato saw was the cold eyes of Naruto as he mercilessly skewered him with the chakra arm that he had formed. The clone was reduced to a pile of wood to Naruto's amusement. He sighed for a moment, thinking of his next course of action. Despite my desire to get as far away from Konoha as possible, I need to find out what happened to my clan and who is the one that sealed the memories coming from my shadow clones. To do this, I have to get back to Konoha. That means I have to save these ungrateful bastards for now. If I were to go back alone, suspicions would arise and I don't need that right now. Coming to a decision, he put his hands in one of his favorite position and called the name of the jutsu he wanted to use. Kage Bunshin, a giant cloud of smoke erupted around him. When the could was dispelled, a sea of Naruto could be seen just before they went to every direction available, searching for his teammates. Meanwhile, the original stayed back and sat in a meditative position while grinning like a madman. Like they says, tests are better than words, he thought while thinking of the fact that he didn't feel any drop of his chakra when he used this technique despite the high cost on chakra. I really have an unlimited amount, it seems, but how can I use it to my advantage? I have already recreated the chakra tail that I can use whenever I am in QB mode, although I can only control one tail for now. It won't be enough against Orochimaru though. I have to find something that make use of this gift. While thinking, he recalled something that he had noticed while reviewing his memories. He had seen several high-level ninjas use this but hadn't thought much of it at the time. It was the fact that they sometimes use chakra to tremendously increase their physical abilities. He even saw Jiraiya do the same during the training trip. By observing how they used this skill, he was able to determine several key points. The first and obvious one was that it cost much chakra, forcing their user to use it sparingly, and in short bursts. This was solved by the fact that he didn't have any limit on his supply of chakra. The second key point was that the increase depended solely on the amount of chakra and control of the user. This point was the one thing that made him smirk in anticipation. If I am right, then this skill has the most potential among the ninja techniques, he thought while rising from the ground. He looked around himself to observe his surrounding. Finally he stopped when he saw a big tree at about 200 meters from his current position. He focused on his chakra and sent the energy to his legs, coating the whole limbs in his chakra. He took a huge breath and looked at the tree again with a determined expression. Here goes nothing. And just like that, he ran toward the tree. He reached it in 4 seconds. Not bad for a start. This speed is about mid to high jounin level, a speed I could move at when I used 3 tails mode. But what if I increase the amount of chakra? He thought while turning around and looked back at the position he was at before. He focused his chakra again, but this time he doubled the amount of chakra he used before and then he ran again. This time, he didn't stop at the desired spot. He went way farther than that because unlike before, the only thing he could see was a blur. Fortunately, he didn't crash on anything, but this made him pause with a frown on his face. I didn't take into account the tunnel vision I would get if I moved this fast. So focused on finding a way to get rid of this problem, he didn't even notice that at that moment, he reached Kage level speed, around 140 meters by second, with easy. Analyzing everything he has done so far, he noticed a little detail he hadn't thought of. It was the fact that he improved his legs' capabilities and ignored the rest of his body. So he did another test, but this time, he covered his whole body with chakra. Of course, the amount of chakra needed to cover his whole body was enormous. It was more than the total reserve of chakra a high-level jounin had in his body. But to Naruto, it was nothing as his body replenished his reserve as fast as it was used. He took another huge breath before running again, back to the tree he used as a mark. This time, everything was different. Unlike before where he only saw a blur as he moved, he saw everything. It was like he was walking even though he moved at Kage level speed. The only thing that allowed him to know that he was moving quickly was that everything around him moved at a snail pace. He took a deep breath to calm himself, as he was so happy he wanted to jump around like a child. His happiness was short-lived though when he received the memories of one of his clones that found his team. From what he had seen, they were all unconscious and at the mercy of Orochimaru, Sasuke and Kabuto. Shit! Those idiots couldn't find another place to take a nap? He thought sarcastically as he thought of what he could do to salvage the situation. Fortunately, they are not too far away, at about 2 kilometers from here. I can reach them quickly, but what to do about the others? He then remembered all the humiliation he sustained at Orochimaru's hand, the fact that Sasuke spared him when they fought at the Valley of the End and finally Kabuto. Naruto's train of thought stopped when a flash of his battle with Kabuto during Tsunade's retrieval appeared. He was reminded of the reason behind Kabuto's survival after taking a direct hit from the Rasengan. A feral smirk appeared on his lips as he remembered Kabuto's explanation of his survival. This could solve my problem with the Kyuubi, Naruto thought, and quickly created another clone before dispelling it, thus sending a message to all the clone to stop their research, but not to dispel as he didn't know what side effect having that much clones dispelled in one go would do. He then looked in the direction he knew his teammates were before covering himself with his chakra. And like before, he vanished at a speed that defied any logic. Wanting to reach them quickly, he had used even more chakra than earlier, which allowed him to pass the sound barrier. A few seconds later, he had reached Orochimaru's base. Still moving at high speed, he circled above the crater Sasuke, Orochimaru and Kabuto stood, before he jumped in, retrieved his 3 teammates and moved about another kilometer away from the crater before leaving them there. He created a clone to guard them before he went back to confront his enemies. He reappeared at the edge of the crater. Because of the speed at which he moved, a shockwave was created when he stopped in front of the Oto ninjas. The latter covered their eyes against the dust that rose. Once the dust was settled, they looked back at Naruto as they could feel his enormous pool of chakra. Naruto looked at the trio with an impassive gaze that unnerved them, as it was so foreign on his face. He could detect the shock that they were trying to hide. Certainly because of my speed, Naruto thought as his gaze stayed on Sasuke. The latter was looking at Naruto with a cold gaze. He was still trying to understand what happened a few moments ago. To be able to move away 3 people so fast, that should be impossible. Even me, I cannot do something like that, and I know that I am very fast. Just what kind of jutsu is that? He wondered but still didn't voice his thoughts. He didn't have to with Kabuto around anyway. The latter, while impressed by the way Naruto moved his teammates to safety, didn't think much of Naruto. And he wasn't above expressing his thoughts out loud. Naruto-kun, I see that you are still alive despite the beating you received earlier. You must really want to save Sasuke-kun if you are so tenacious. He spoke while adjusting his glasses. He expected his foe to react to his taunt like always, but this time, the only reaction he got was a raised eyebrow from him, before he was completely ignored. Instead of listening to Kabuto's taunts, Naruto looked at Orochimaru. He quickly noticed the way the latter leaned on one side of his body. He could also see sweat rolling down Orochimaru's face. Remembering what Jiraiya told him about the functioning of the snake Sannin soul transfer technique, he deduced that said Sannin was reaching the limit of his host's body. One person out of this battle then, he thought before looking back at Sasuke. Sasuke, he marked a pause there as if he was thinking about what he wanted to say. Earlier today, I would have asked you to come back to the village after seeing you, but now I cannot seem to care about what you do with your life. He finally said, to the surprise of everyone as they wondered where this change of opinion was coming from. If I haven't seen you right now, I would have thought that you would have done exactly as you said, Sasuke answered back. But apparently even you can change, it seems. The sarcasm was clear for everyone listening to the conversation, but Naruto didn't react to it. You on the other haven't changed much, unfortunately. Naruto shot back, making Sasuke raise an eyebrow too. You may have improved physically, but you are still the same mentally. You still are as arrogant and self-centered as before. The only difference now is that you hide it much better. He explained, much to the surprise of the trio and a muffled giggling coming from Kabuto. Meanwhile, Orochimaru looked at the two ex-best friends, wondering where this banter was going. Big words coming from someone who was the last of his class, Sasuke finally said, causing Naruto to smile at that. Like I said, you haven't changed. A little attack on your ego, and you react like a caged lion. You try to hurt the other by using outdated information. Does it really matter that I was the dead last of our year? Sasuke said nothing to that and kept looking at Naruto in the eyes, his Sharingan activated. But for those that were attentive, they could see the anger that Sasuke was containing. Like earlier when he was fighting Naruto's teammates, Sasuke vanished and appeared behind Naruto with his sword raised toward the sky. I don't really have time to waste talking to you. I spared you at the Valley of the End, this time you won't escape alive. He finished while swinging his sword with the intent of bisecting his foe. When he was about to touch Naruto's body, he felt air instead of human flesh as Naruto disappeared from his sight again, even with his Sharingan activated. Inside the crater, Naruto appeared in front of Kabuto, who was still looking at his earlier position, not having noticed that he had already moved away. What are you looking at? He asked, revealing his position to the Oto ninjas, who looked shocked at that. Kabuto jumped backward to create some distance between the two while Naruto looked at him impassively. Just as I thought, he has reached and even surpassed Minato's speed. I was unable to follow his movements even though I was ready this time. What happened between the time I beat him and now? I know I told him the secret of the Kage Bunshin, but he couldn't have increased his physical ability using this technique, so how is he doing this? Orochimaru thought, alarmed. Sasuke on the other looked from his sword to Naruto with wide eyes, as he couldn't believe what he had seen with his Sharingan. Before I could touch him, he covered himself with a thick layer of chakra before he disappeared. The amount of chakra he used to do this is even higher than my reserves without using the curse seal, and he doesn't seem bothered by that. In fact, he looks just fine. Just how much chakra does he have? Thanks to his dojutsu, Sasuke was able to see Naruto form his technique, but after that he lost track of him. Because of his high speed, he knew just how dangerous a fast ninja was to anyone, so he certainly wasn't happy to discover that Naruto was way faster than him. Before he could ponder further on it, Naruto interrupted him. I see you still attack first and ask questions later, Sasuke. But didn't any of you found it strange that I would stay here even after recovering my teammates? You obviously want to save Sasuke-kun from Orochimaru, Sama. Kabuto answered first while smiling at Naruto. Do you have selective hearing, Kabuto? I remember telling you a few minutes ago that I could care less about him. Naruto looked at Kabuto when he said that. Using this opportunity, Sasuke moved again toward Naruto, this time with lightning covering his hand. Because he couldn't see Sasuke moves, Naruto reacted too late. Sasuke's arm pierced Naruto's chest with the lightning burning everything around it. Seeing this, he couldn't help but smirk at having found the weakness to Naruto's jutsu and capitalized on it so quickly. Even Orochimaru and Kabuto smirked at that. The smirk turned into a frown though when he felt wind on his outstretched arm. He knew that he had touched Naruto, but apparently the latter had been able to move away at the last second. It was then that Naruto appeared back at the edge of the crater looking down at the trio. They quickly noticed the burned shirt and blood coming from his chest area, making Sasuke widen his smirk. I found the weakness of that technique of yours, Sasuke said arrogantly at an impassive-looking Naruto. I don't know how you do it, but you use a huge amount of chakra to activate whatever technique you are using, and once it is activated, you become too fast to follow. But until you have activated it, you are still as fast as a regular ninja. And in your case, it is about low jounin level. Now I just have to catch you off guard again, and it is over. He finished his explanation with a sneer on his face, giving his companions the necessary information to deal with his ex-teammate. Just like I said earlier, Sasuke-kun is still out of your league. Naruto-kun. You should just give up while you still can, Kabuto said while fixing his glasses again. Strangely enough, during the whole speech, Orochimaru had stayed silent, choosing to observe instead. Unlike his subordinates, he had experience in spade. Because of this, he saw something that Sasuke overlooked and knew that it was what would bring their doom if he didn't do something right now. But before he could do anything, he saw the look on Naruto's face that went from impassive to cold anger, and he knew that he was too late. Especially when Naruto suddenly vanished again. The thing that Sasuke overlooked in his arrogance was that while Naruto was vulnerable when he wasn't using his speed technique, he was unstoppable when he was using it. That is why Sasuke was shocked when he saw the propelled corpse of Kabuto as a sphere of chakra covered it. Rasengan? Sasuke thought, familiar with the after effects of the jutsu. The most shocking was the distance at which Kabuto was propelled. He was sent at least 100 meters away from them. He looked behind him just as Naruto appeared. He moved again with his Kusanagi sword unsheathed and lightning covering it toward the motionless Naruto when he saw the latter vanish again. Gnashing his teeth in frustration, he stopped dead on track and tried to sense Naruto but to no avail. Knowing that Naruto would attack him anyway, he made a gamble. Chidori Nagashi, he yelled as a current of lightning surrounded him. He stayed like that for a moment before Naruto appeared above him again, this time with Orochimaru and Sasuke in his line of sight. How long do you think you can use this jutsu before exhausting your reserves? Naruto asked to a snarling Sasuke who knew he was right. He deactivated the jutsu hoping to conserve some chakra when Naruto disappeared again, and before he could reactivate it, he was slammed to with a Rasengan that launched him in the opposite direction Kabuto flew. Naruto appeared back and looked at Orochimaru, who had stayed calm the whole time. I see that you know when you are outmatched, Orochimaru. The answer he got was Orochimaru scoffing at him. Don't compare me to my subordinates. Unlike them, I am not naive to fall against your technique. Sometimes I wonder if Sasuke and you aren't related with the arrogance each of you display. Then again, I understand that you don't want to appear weak against the genin, Naruto said as he looked intently at Orochimaru. Earlier Sasuke didn't let me finish what I had to say. So I will finish now. Why do you think I am still here fighting all of you if not to retrieve Sasuke? Orochimaru looked at him in wonder. He was rackling his brain for an explanation but couldn't find anything that Naruto was interested in. Seeing this, Naruto decided to answer his question. Our earlier battle had several effects on me that will stay secret for now, but one of the side effects was this. He pointed at the wound he received earlier, making Orochimaru wonder what Naruto wanted to tell him. It didn't take him long to understand what Naruto wanted to say. As you have no doubt noticed by now, my wounds aren't healing as fast as before. I need to find something around it. That is the main reason I am still here. This made Orochimaru grin sinisterly before laughing out loud. Don't tell me you are here to make a deal with the devil? That would be something to behold, Kakukaku. You are mistaken, Orochimaru. This stopped him as he listened to Naruto. I am not here to make a deal with you. I don't need to, as I have already what I want. Orochimaru could only look at him with a surprised look. What does he mean by that? He is looking for a way to either recover his regenerative ability, or something equivalent. The only person who has something even remotely equivalent is No. Naruto smirked as he saw the dawning look on Orochimaru's face. As you have no doubt come to the correct conclusion, I am sorry to say that I will borrow Kabuto indefinitely from you. See you next time, Orochimaru. Like before, he disappeared, leaving an enraged Sannin behind, who quickly moved to secure Kabuto, but he found nothing on the area, much to his horror. Naruto. Far away from there, Naruto was smiling as he was transporting his teammates, and had captured Kabuto with the help of his clones. Now I have to investigate the matter of the destruction of my clan when I return to the village. Naruto sat in front of a campfire. He looked at the flames in contemplation. Earlier that day, he had fled from the snake Sannin with his teammates, and his prize Kabuto. Being the only one awake, he wasn't able to reach Konoha, although he had passed Fire Country border long ago. Because of the lack of noise nearby, Naruto was immediately aware of someone waking up. He looked over his shoulder to see Yamato scratching his eyes in a sleepy manner. After a while, Yamato looked around himself and noted that he was in a forest, probably in Fire Country, as he was used to the kind of trees found there. Panic suddenly held him as he remembered the situation he was in before losing consciousness. While assessing his surrounding and formulating a possible plan to escape, he took notice of his subordinate Naruto calmly looking at him. He was at first afraid that Naruto was captured alongside them, but then he remembered that he was in Fire Country. He took a deep breath to rein in his warrior instincts, and looked at Naruto. How long was I out? About 5 hours, Naruto replied, still looking at his leader. He was waiting for the questioning that would come. Fortunately, he already had a cover story planned. Surprisingly, the first thing that Yamato did wasn't to question him like he expected. Instead, he rose from the ground with great difficulty, as he hadn't recovered all of his motor skills, and rummaged through his pants looking for something. Upon finding what he was after, he removed it from his pocket, showing to Naruto wire strings. While searching for those, he walked toward the third member of the rescue team, and now he stood above Sai. He then proceeded to bind the latter in a way that would restrict most of his movements. Naruto looked at the proceeding with a surprised look. He didn't understand what was going on, and why Yamato was treating Sai like a prisoner, and was quick to voice his questions. "What is going on, Yamato, sensei?" With his back facing Naruto, Yamato continued what he was doing. "I am binding Sai so he won't make a run for it when he wake up." "I can see that you know. My question is, why are you doing this?" Yamato looked back at Naruto, surprised by the question, before a look of understanding came to his face. "Oh, I forgot you weren't with us when this happened. You see, this ninja," he pointed at Sai as he said that, "betrayed us when you were fighting against Orochimaru. Apparently he had another mission given to him by someone other than Hokage Sama. He will have to explain himself to Tsunade Sama upon our return. That is why I am restraining him in case he tries to escape before we are back home." He wasn't sure if he understood completely what Yamato said, but Naruto nodded all the same. Once Yamato finished restraining Sai, he walked back toward the campfire before taking a sit in front of Naruto, the fire being the only thing keeping them apart. "Where are we right now, and for that matter, how did we get here?" Yamato finally asked after a minute of silence. "Here we go. Let's see if I am still as good an actor as I was in my youth," Naruto thought while looking at Yamato in the eyes. "We are inside Fire Country, and to answer your second question, I carried the three of you with the help of my clones." "What happened then?" "When I woke up, I found myself in an underground hideout. I didn't know how I came to be there, so I got out of there and looked for you. It was several hours later that I found Sai, Sakura, and you in a crater. So I took the three of you with me and ran back to Konoha, as I didn't know what was going on, and felt that it would be safer to be back home than in the wilderness." Naruto finished while looking at Yamato questioningly. "Why was I alone in that hideout? Did you and the team abandon me there?" he asked, with anger freely visible on his face. Yamato, seeing where this conversation was going, quickly replied, "No, we did not abandon you. When I left, I created a clone to keep you safe until you came back to your senses. We needed to follow Orochimaru, as it was the only lead we had to the Uchiha. We couldn't afford to waste such opportunity. Something must have happened to my clone while we were gone. That is the only reason I can find to explain you waking up alone. Sorry if that scared you." Naruto's eyes softened a little at that. "I understand," he finally said slowly. The truth, though, was that he was laughing in his mind at the ease with which he manipulated Yamato. A little show of anger and distress, and they quickly lose their cool, he thought while Yamato continued his questioning. "You said you found us in a crater, yes?" Naruto nodded. "Did you find anything else? We were fighting against Sasuke there, and I am ashamed to admit that he outclassed us easily. So you understand my surprise, as what you said implied that he left us alive just like that." Naruto's eyes got big as saucers when he heard Yamato said that. "Sasuke beats the three of you? Easily? How is that possible?" "I know it is surreal, but it is the truth. I don't know what kind of training he endured, but he is that good. We greatly underestimated him, and his improving rate for that matter. I don't know if there was anything out there. When I saw you unconscious, the only thing I thought was to get you to safety. I admit I was also afraid that someone would suddenly appear out of nowhere," he finished while scratching his hairs in his embarrassed signature reaction and grinning stupidly. Yamato nodded at that, understanding what Naruto must have went through. So blaming him was the last thing on his mind. Instead, he was blaming himself for being weak. "I have been a ninja longer than the Uchiha, yet he easily outdid me. I can't even use the excuse of not having a bloodline like him with my Mokuton jutsus. The truth is that I became complacent in my ability, thinking I was above others by being an Anbu captain. Seems like I will have to correct that mistake once back home." It was at that moment that Sakura woke up and joined them around the campfire. She looked at Yamato and nodded at him in respect, but when she laid her eyes on Naruto, attention immediately rose in the air. The first thing that came to her mind was to blame Naruto for this and voice her thoughts of him, but that quickly went out of her mind when she saw something she had never seen in Naruto's eyes: contempt. This surprised her. Naruto's look was that of a predator waiting for his prey to make a mistake. In this case, she felt that she was the prey and not the other way around. "Evening, Sakura," Naruto said softly to Sakura, who nodded slowly. Yamato found nothing strange about the way Naruto greeted his teammate, and chose to go back to his introspection. Because he didn't know them well enough, he couldn't have noticed the subtle change in Naruto's way of greeting Sakura. Sakura did. Tired as she was, she didn't comment on it, as she wasn't in the mood for a verbal fight with Naruto. A fight she wasn't sure she would win with the way Naruto looked back at her, so she did the next best thing and asked Yamato what happened since losing consciousness. Upon being filled in, she couldn't stop the depressing sigh that escaped from her. Like Yamato, she was thinking about the earlier fight and found herself lacking. I couldn't even do something against him. I am labeled back home as a prodigy when it comes to my chakra control, but I couldn't even notice that I had been trapped in a genjutsu. What kind of apprentice to the Hokage get beaten like that? She cringed though when she remembered what Tsunade told her not even a few months ago. Flashback. Tsunade stood in front of her student in her private training ground. She just finished her training session with Sakura, who sat on the ground exhausted. You are weak, Tsunade said to a shocked Sakura who looked at her mentor. Granted that you are well above regular ninjas, you are still too weak to be considered my successor. But Tsunade-sama, I am one of the best in the village when it comes to healing. I followed all your advices to the letter. How can you say that? Sakura asked incredulously. Do you really think that I was chosen as the Godame Hokage only for my healing art? There is a reason my teammates and I were considered a legendary team during the Second Shinobi War, you know. And this had nothing to do with my healing skills. In our team, each of us were very powerful in an area. Orochimaru was our ninjutsu and kinjutsu expert. Jiraiya was our seals, information gathering and trap-making expert. And finally I was the taijutsu expert. She looked at the wide-eyed Sakura with a smirk. Surprised, aren't you? People always assume that Jiraiya is the taijutsu expert, but they are wrong. I know many assume that the only thing I have is my super strength, and that by being able to dodge it they can beat me easily. She looked pointedly at Sakura. Even you for that matter. For her defense, Sakura looked ashamed of thinking like that of her sensei. But I can understand why they think like that. But the truth is that my strength is just the first level of my true technique, the reason why even the current Raikage is wary of fighting me. Your true technique? Sakura questioned. What? Did you think that I was that feared back then only because of my strength? These days, no one, except those that fought in the Second Shinobi War, remember why I was so feared like my teammates. That is because I haven't used that particular technique in a long time now. She looked at her student with a cold gaze. Right now you are not ready to learn that technique, and thus be considered my successor. You and Shizen have the same problem. And this is what makes me angry. Few people know this, but there has always been a big rivalry between the Sannin. With Orochimaru and Jiraiya having taken an apprentice, I don't want to be left behind by them. Along the same lines, I won't accept anything less than you being able to fight toes-to-toes against Sasuke or Naruto, if not outright defeat them. With that said, Tsunade turned her back on Sakura and went away, not before leaving a parting word. When the times comes, I will teach you to fight and not to heal. End flashback. At first she had wondered what kind of rivalry her sensei was talking about, but she found nothing indicating this to be the truth. With time she forgot the discussion she had with Tsunade, and now she couldn't help but apprehend seeing the look she will be given once she comes back home. After a while though, Yamada looked at Naruto. Now that we are awake, you can rest too. We will take care of the watching. Naruto nodded before he went to his sleeping bag. Even if he hid it well, he was tired from the earlier events, and a good night of sleep wouldn't be so bad for him. The next day, we found the team of 4 jumping from trees to trees. Yamato was in the front holding a knocked-out Sai in his arm. The latter awakened last night but was knocked out again immediately after. Sakura was in the middle while Naruto closed the formation by standing behind them. Because of the tension of having failed a mission, they didn't talk to each other as they contemplated the consequences of their failure. In Naruto's case though, it was more about thinking of his next course of action regarding the matter of his clan's destruction. Already Yamato was sending him curious glances once in a while. Fortunately he knew why the latter was doing that. Apparently Yamato couldn't sense the Kyuubi's chakra circulating through his system, and that worried him. Naruto told him that the sealing he used to get him back to his senses might be the cause. Thankfully Yamato had never used the technique on a Jinchuriki before, so he didn't know what to expect. The real reason was that Naruto had stopped assimilating Kyuubi's dimension as his mind. This had the side effect of reducing the amount of Kyuubi chakra going through him. There was still some, but it was so minimal that Yamato couldn't sense it. Naruto knew this but didn't explain it to Yamato. He looked in front of him as he jumped to another tree. Used to this method of transport, he didn't even bother to look at the next tree to know where he needed to go. Right now, what I lack the most is information. It is a shame, but I don't even know the geographical position of most of the countries. I should have learned those during my academy years, but a combination of several factors made me miss them. So first thing should be to learn everything I missed. He looked as Yamato glanced in his way again, but upon seeing Naruto looking at him, he quickly looked back in front of him. I also need to know how the village really works. This will point me in the direction I need to take to learn about my clan. This time his face changed and freely expressed his anger. And finally I need to find out who in Konoha could have put in my mind the barrier that blocked the Kage Bunshin ability. He had a guess that it was a member of the Yamanaka clan, as the rumors had it that they were well versed in the kind of techniques that affected the mind, but he couldn't be so sure. After all, it was explained during one of the few classes he didn't miss that the Yamanaka and Nara techniques weren't bloodlines but were easier to use for them. It was possible for someone outside the clan to have learned these techniques, so he couldn't blame them without proofs. I will be damned if I become like the villagers. That doesn't mean I won't take my revenge on those guilty though. We are finally there, he heard Yamato said in front of him, so he quickly cooled his features and prepared himself for the confrontation that will soon happen. Tsunade was sitting behind her desk. In front of her stood Yamato, Sakura, Naruto, and Sai. The last one was still restrained, but unlike before, he was awake now. She was specifically looking at Yamato, as he was the leader of the team. I assume by the lack of the target's presence that the mission was a failure. Unfortunately, Hokage-sama, things happened during the mission that weren't accounted for. Like what? Tsunade wondered curiously. No, wait. I would prefer a complete debrief on the mission from the get-to-go. Yamato nodded at his leader request and began the process of explaining everything that happened since the day they got out of Konoha. He took great care of highlighting everything of importance, and whenever there was an event where he wasn't directly present, like the fight between Naruto and Orochimaru, he left the concerned take care of it. Meanwhile, Tsunade looked attentively at her ninjas. When she heard about Naruto and Orochimaru fight, she looked pointedly at him. She noticed that the latter was rather calm, unlike the boasting ninja she was used to. He is still as emotional as before if he lost his control against Orochimaru's taunting. Granted, that snake is rather good at getting under the skin of his opponents. But upon hearing the way Sakura made herself useless, she frowned deeply and looked right at her student. The look she gave her was enough for the latter to know that she was in trouble. Half an hour later, Yamato had finished recounting everything that happened and was now waiting for his leader's reaction. Tsunade frowned as she looked at Sai before she made a gesture with her hand. Immediately afterward, an Umbu with a rat mask materialized beside her. Rat, I want you to take Sai to Ibiki. Tell him he has free rein to get this young ninja to tell us everything he knows. The Umbu nodded before moving quickly toward a nonplus Sai and roughly grabbed the latter by the shoulder. Moments later, the two of them had disappeared in a puff of smoke. That Danzo, I should have known that something like that would happen. You give an arm and they take the whole hand, she thought furiously as she contemplated on the way she could use it to her advantage. Tsunade coughed to get back the attention of her ninjas. You said that Orochimaru spared you, or at least you think so? Yamato nodded at that. Curious. I wonder why he would do that, but knowing him, he must have seen something in you that made you more valuable alive than dead. But just to be sure, Sakura and you will have to be searched for anything that snake could have done to you. She finished looking at Yamato and Sakura, clearly implying that they couldn't be trusted for now. As for you, Naruto, she looked at him with contemplating eyes. You are to rest until your team is free to go. Naruto nodded slowly as he feigned being tired from the mission. This didn't go unnoticed as Tsunade dismissed them. Naruto went toward his apartment, while Sakura was led by an Umbu to the hospital. Yamato stayed behind, as he didn't finish his report. Is there something else, Yamato? Indeed, Hokage-sama. I didn't want to mention it in front of the others, especially Naruto, because of its importance. Tsunade crossed her arms under her breasts and waited for the ninja to continue. As you know, I used your grandfather's technique to subdue Naruto when he lost control. What I didn't mention is that afterward, I couldn't even feel a trace of the beast chakra in Naruto. Yamato explained slowly to his leader, who thought about the possible implications of such things. Is it a side effect of the jutsu? Yamato answered negatively. I am not sure. Being the first time I used it on a Jinchuriki, I don't know if it is the case or not. Will it have negative consequences? Again, none that I can think of. In a few days, the beast chakra will come back, I think. I just thought I should warn you of this development just in case, Hokage-sama. Tsunade sighed at that. You are dismissed then. But Yamato protested, but he was stopped by a glare from Tsunade. But what? You are telling me that the Kyuubi chakra isn't in Naruto's system and won't be for an undetermined amount of time. You don't know if it is good or bad. In short, you gave me nothing except speculation. What do you want me to do with this information anyway? She looked at him with a glare. I have enough problem to deal with, so I would prefer you don't waste my time with speculation. What I want is fact. If you think there might be a problem with Naruto, then investigate it, and comes to me later with proofs of your conclusion. Now I have work to do. Recognizing it as what it was, Yamato bowed before getting out of the room, all the while thinking of keeping an eye on Naruto for the few days to come. Meanwhile, Naruto was absently walking in an alley. He looked around to be sure that no one nearby. Upon confirming that, he put his hands in his favorite hand seal and muttered in his mind Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. In a poof of smoke several clones appeared. He looked at all of them. All of you, you have until the night to find all the information I missed during my academy years. The clones only nodded at their creator before using the henge to change in random people, from children to adults. Afterward they left toward Konoha Public Library knowing that it held the information they needed. Naruto looked as they left, and was ashamed to admit that he should have done this a lot earlier in his training. Even if he didn't have access to the clone technique, he should have at least done something to improve, but he was too frightened to act on his impulse and assume his real personality. Figuring that he had other matter to attend to, he slowly got out of the alley and went toward an area that he knew very well. An area that was so well guarded that despite his pranking streak, he had never been able to get close to the entrance, let alone infiltrate it. This area was the Konoha archives. Few people even knew that it existed. It was only a myth either in the village or outside it. Only the most graded ninja knew of its existence, and even then, they weren't allowed inside. The only reason he knew of it was because people always dismissed him as inconsequential. It was by luck that he overheard the Sandaime talk about it with one of the elders. At the time, they had needed something from the place. For what? He didn't know. Supposedly, the place was where every missions, events and records was kept. Most other villages preferred to destroy such things as if it were to fall in enemy hands it would be disastrous for them. But Konoha used it in a completely different way. With it, they could blackmail powerful people in the event that they needed to do so. For Naruto, this was the perfect place to find information about his dead clan, information that hadn't been censored before being released to the public. It wasn't long before he reached the area he knew the archives were. In front of him stood a tall building. It looked simple enough that it didn't catch the attention of the onlookers if there was any. The last time he went there, he didn't find anything worthwhile. Of course, he didn't enter the building as his instincts warned him against doing that. Now, with his experience as a ninja, he concentrated and discreetly looked around in case he was observed, and found nothing. Naruto did a double take at that and scowled. I know that I suck at feeling others, but what the hell? Not even a trace of chakra? He thought while he looked around. He couldn't enter the building because if he was detected, then the guards would reinforce the protection, and when the times came for him to really infiltrate the building, it would be even harder. He resigned himself and backtracked from there. This just means I have to train my sensor ability, he thought as he calmly walked back toward the village. Midway from there, he stopped abruptly. I have nothing to do in the village right now. I should use this time to get other things done. He sighed, knowing that what he needed to do right now wasn't something he looked forward to. Without any indication or hand seals, Naruto disappeared from his last position. The only indication being the deafening sound that was heard as he broke the sound barrier again. Fortunately, no one was around to hear it. Kabuto stirred in his sleep as if he was having a nightmare. And like any nightmare, it ended with the dreamer jumping from his sleeping position. He tried at least, as he soon noticed upon opening his eyes that his hands and feet were bound tightly with metal wire. He immediately assessed his situation by trying to unbind himself, but to no avail. Not deterred, he tried to use one of the basic jutsu taught at the academy to slip through the binding, but as he suspected, it didn't work. The last thing he tried was to use his chakra, but discovered to his horror that he couldn't even feel it. Shit! Chakra bindings? He questioned himself with a scowl. If there was one thing that made every ninja angry was being caught by these kinds of binding. They were the worst as they completely stopped the prisoner from using his chakra as long as the latter was in contact with him. Knowing that escape was impossible for now, he tried to remember how he came to be in this unfavorable position. But he didn't get far as a crack was heard behind him. Like a snake, he turned his neck to see who it was. Upon seeing the male that approached him, he widened his eyes as he remembered everything that happened. I see you are awake. Good. Naruto said as he walked with measured steps until he stood in front of Kabuto. He was satisfied to see the shock written on his prisoner's face. He saw as Kabuto schooled his features and carefully analyzed his surroundings. After a while, Kabuto's gaze settled on Naruto's. Finished trying to come up with an escape plan? But the interested didn't reply. You don't want to talk, I see. That is fine too. After all, I don't need you to speak, not yet anyway. I will do all the speaking for the both of us. Like a good soldier, Kabuto kept his mouth shut and just looked at his captor. One of the first they learned to resist interrogation was to keep their mouths shut for as long as they could. Despite knowing that no one could resist interrogation indefinitely, he still kept to his training. He also knew that he was lucky to have to face Naruto as the interrogator, knowing that the latter didn't possess the skills to make him talk. He believed that at least. A shudder ran through his spine at that. I am sure you remember our first fight. After all, it was at that time that you made your first attempt at killing me. Naruto continued, not minding whatever Kabuto was doing. He still looked at Kabuto though and was impressed that the latter didn't even flinch at the accusation. During that fight, you couldn't stop yourself from showing off your superiority to me, calling me an idiot, someone that would never amount to anything. Seeing that Kabuto still didn't react, he continued. Of course, you also compared me to Sasuke, the genius, the elite, or whatever you call him this day. Fuckmate wouldn't be far from the truth, I guess. No matter the training he had, Kabuto wasn't able to hide the distaste he felt at hearing the last thing Naruto said about him and Sasuke. He may have questioned morality concerning human beings, but he could say at 100% that he was straight. So implying that he wasn't was a blow to his ego. He knew not if it was the fact that he still underestimated Naruto or something else, but he finally chose to speak. What it is, a new interrogation technique. If so, then it is lame. He commented scathingly. Putting me in a clearing devoid of anything. If you are trying to confuse me in the location, then you failed. Obviously I am somewhere in Konoha, possibly the Forest of Death. Now whoever is in charge sent you to do the talking, hoping to take me off guard? Again, it didn't work. I can at least congratulate you on thoroughly binding me, but it is the only thing you did right. Naruto just looked at Kabuto amused. You think it is a ruse of Konoha? What else would it be? But I digress. I shouldn't have interrupted you. Go ahead and talk to your heart content about our fight. Kabuto finished smiling predatorily. One would wonder if he really was the prisoner or the other way around. Naruto looked at Kabuto contemplatively. He was asking himself if he should tell him that Konoha didn't even know that Naruto had him in his possession. In the end, he chose not to and kept it for a later time. As I was saying before you interrupted me, you talked during our fight a lot. You mentioned something very interesting about your abilities though. This time, Kabuto was more attentive as he had an idea where this conversation was going. After all, he was the one who made these kinds of remarks, and usually what followed next was he dissecting the person on a table. If I remembers correctly, you said that you could regenerate dead cells, thus healing yourself for as long as you had the chakra needed to do so. You also bragged a lot about the fact that unlike Tsunade's own regenerative technique, yours didn't age the user as you didn't create new cells but brought them back to life instead. Am I correct so far? Kabuto didn't reply much to Naruto's disappointment. Now I won't beat around the bush, as I am sure you already guessed what I am after. I want you to teach me that technique. Gone was the smiling Naruto. In his place was a serious ninja who wouldn't hesitate to kill to get what he wanted, and Kabuto knew that as well. But if I give him what he wants, I won't have any use for him left. He thought, but Naruto didn't finish his speech. And before you think of using a bloodline as an excuse, I suggest you rethink your strategy, as I know for a fact that you have no bloodline. Kabuto looked at him curiously, prompting him to reply. How I know this little tidbit of information isn't yours to concern with. I don't need such excuse when I simply know that this isn't something you can learn. Someone with such little knowledge of the medicinal art would never be able to grasp the concept being my jutsu. So you must have understood that it isn't that I don't want to, but I cannot teach you this. He finished with a satisfied smile because of two facts. The first was that he had brought Naruto to a stop, all the while questioning his intelligence. The second was that if Naruto really wanted to learn that jutsu, then he would have to keep him alive. This increased his chance of escaping, as Naruto was bound to make an error sooner or later. When he looked at Naruto's face though, he couldn't help but feel like he was forgetting something very important, something that would come back to bite him hard. For his part, Naruto was lost in his thoughts as he contemplated what he had to do. On one hand, Kabuto's analysis of the situation was right. If the jutsu involved deep knowledge of the medicinal arts, then he couldn't learn the technique, or at least the Naruto from before his rebirth. Kabuto didn't know the ability he had access to now, so he couldn't have anticipated that he could acquire knowledge at a fast rate. So he could go ahead with Kabuto's implied tutoring and learn the technique after a while. But that would make him reliant on an enemy, something he didn't want in the least. On the other hand, he could simply take the information he needed by force, but even he had to admit that he was no interrogator. Of course, he could senselessly hurt Kabuto until he got what he wanted, but there was no way to say if it would work and how long it would take. That left him with limited options to find a sure way to get information. The first thing that came to his mind was ironically the mind attacks possessed by the Yamanaka clan. If he were to learn them, he could easily invade Kabuto's mind and get what he wanted. His mind made up, he carefully went outside of Kabuto's sight, behind the trees where 2 teams of Naruto's clones waited. The clones were there to keep an eye on Kabuto for the time being. Naruto replaced them every 12 hours to be sure that they didn't dispel from lack of chakra. The Naruto that led the interrogation nodded at them before he disappeared in a puff of smoke, knowing that the original would get the information or lack of and decide what to do next. A few days later. Like always, Tsunade was sitting behind her desk working tiredly on paperwork. You would think that a ninja of her stature wouldn't waste her time doing such menial task. Unfortunately, it was a requirement of the position she held. While she could easily delegate the work to several of her underlings, she would still need to check whatever those subordinates of hers did. After all, most of the paperwork was about day-to-day management of the village. She wouldn't be surprised if someone took advantage of it if they could. Sighing, she looked at the drawers under her desk where she kept her stash of alcohol. What she wouldn't do to get a glass right now. Still as drunk as always. A voice was heard coming from the window on her left. She replied by throwing a handful of papers at the intruder, who easily dodged it. Jiraiya, how many times did I tell you to use the door like a civilized person? I am hurt you compare me with a simple human being. After all, I am not just about anyone. Completely disregarding the deadpan expression on Tsunade, Jiraiya kept at it. From the most known to the most hidden lands of the elemental countries, from mother to daughter, I am known from all as the gallant toad Sannin Jiraiya. By the end of his introduction, flowers were falling behind him to enhance the display, much to Tsunade's dismay. After much theatrics, Jiraiya finally became serious again as he looked at Tsunade. I heard that Naruto lost control in his last mission. The latter nodded, knowing that it was more of a statement than anything. How bad was it? Tsunade gave him a summary of the mission to answer his question. By the end of it, Jiraiya frowned. He just let them alive? And you let them wander around the village? Tsunade slammed her hand on the table at that. Of course not, they were thoroughly checked for anything suspicious that Snake could have done to them. The result was negative, so I let them go. Jiraiya nodded, ignoring the earlier outburst in favor on piecing together what could have happened in that mission. Finding nothing worthy of note, he decided to explain the real reason of his visit. I have finally found him. Who? The leader of Akatsuki. Jiraiya replied softly to a wide-eyed Tsunade. Then who is it? She snapped at him, impatient on knowing who was behind most of her headaches. Unfortunately, I don't know his identity. I only know that he is in the Hidden Rain village. At that, Tsunade looked suspiciously at her teammate. You plan on confronting him, don't you? But the latter didn't respond. Instead, he just looked outside, gazing at the village. I didn't know you were worried about me, he finally said, smiling, but before he could comment further on it, the door was slammed open by a ninja who seemed to be out of breath. As one person, Jiraiya and Tsunade turned to look at the person that seemed so alarmed. In less than a second, they recognized the person as Yamato, the only survivor of Orochimaru's experiment to obtain the bloodline of the Shodaime Hokage. They left him regain his breath, which in itself didn't take that much time. Yamato, having calmed himself, quickly noticed that Tsunade wasn't alone in the office, but upon recognizing the second ninja in the room, he felt much better. Jiraiya-sama, Tsunade-sama, sorry for interrupting you like that, but the situation is dire. This immediately put the two Sanins on guard and expecting the worst. Hokage-sama, like you suggested after our last meeting, I kept an eye on Naruto to see if anything was wrong. Why would you keep an eye on my student? Jiraiya asked dangerously to the Umbu, who seemed to shrink under the intense gaze of the senior ninja. Thankfully, Tsunade was present, and quickly made him aware of the side effect of subduing Naruto when he was under the influence of Kyuubi chakra. After being allowed to continue, Yamato did just that. I have been observing him for a few days now. I was expecting the beast chakra to come back since then, but it wasn't the case. Earlier I went to his apartment to see if there was any change, but I witnessed something that shocked me. Get over it, boy! Jiraiya snapped. Naruto, he disappeared in a puff of smoke, as if he was a clone. So what? You know that he can use the shadow clone technique, so what is the big deal? That is just it, the whole time it was a clone, because I searched the whole village for him and found nothing. I even went to the barrier squad and asked them if they could feel him in the village, and they said no. I am telling you that for several days Naruto wasn't in the village. Tsunade and Jiraiya widened their eyes as several theories flashed through their minds for an explanation, but before they could think further on it, a blazing alarm sounded through the village, making the two Sanins' faces stricken in horror. They weren't terrified because they could be under attack right now. No, that wasn't something that would scare them like that. What scared them was that particular alarm was only used when the archive had been breached. A few minutes earlier, a figure stood at a treetop. He silently observed his surrounding before looking straight at a lone building that was well hidden by the giant trees that covered the area. If you didn't already know where this building was, you wouldn't be able to find it. Only through extreme luck would you stumble upon it. The figure had spiky yellow hairs held by a black tap. He had bright blue eyes that seemed to dull depending on the amount of light. He wore black pants with a pocket on the right thigh, a black shirt with a black vest above it. To sum it up, he looked like a true ninja that strived in the shadows and only went in the light to kill his next victim. Even if a ninja were to specifically search him by his chakra, he wouldn't be found. That was because during the last few days, Naruto used his clones to train on several specific attributes. One of those was the ability to hide his chakra. Because he had too much chakra, he couldn't use the regular method to hide it. Or at least it didn't work very well with him. Instead, he did something else, something that would be expected from an unpredictable ninja like him. He created his own method of hiding his chakra. It was very efficient, even more so than the regular method, but it wasn't without its flaws. Instead of compressing his chakra in a tight ball around his chest, Naruto left it as it was. He only learned how to change his chakra signature to simulate that of the nature around him. Because of this, everyone trying to sense his chakra would only sense the energy that could usually be felt in the nature. And even then, few people could sense natural energy, so that reduced the number of people able to sense him drastically. Unfortunately, because he didn't stop his chakra from flowing around him like those who used the compressing method, a possessor of a dojutsu could easily see his chakra flowing. Naruto looked in front of him and muttered to himself, "It is now or never," before he let himself fall forward from the tree. Despite falling to his death, he thought nothing of it. It was only before colliding with another tree that his body vanished without any trace whatsoever. 100 meters away from there, he reappeared in a crouching position on the rooftop. He wisely chose not to use the obvious door that served as the only entry point of the building, as he knew not what was behind it. He could still feel the lingering chakra of the barrier that surrounded the building but paid no mind to it. Exactly like the one surrounding the whole village. Effective but completely useless against me, he thought. Indeed, the barrier was useless against him because it worked by detecting any disturbances on the barrier, and the chakra signature causing the disturbance. If let's say a bird were to go through it, its lack of human chakra signature would classify it as a harmless intruder. This was done so the ones in charge of monitoring the barrier wouldn't be distracted by animals. This was a weakness that Naruto used, as the way he concealed his chakra classified him as an animal. Without wasting any time, Naruto raised his hand and a Rasengan was formed. He slammed it on the roof, creating a hole large enough for him to get through. He jumped through it, and found himself in a room bare of anything. A door was in front of him, but he could already heard people moving through the corridor thanks to his sharpened hearing. Probably alerted by the ruckus I caused, he thought while he quickly searched for a spot to hide. Not long after that, the door was slammed open and kunai sailed through it toward no particular target. Following the flying weapons was a ninja garbed like an umbu. Upon entering the room, he quickly took position in the center of the piece while looking behind the door for anyone that might be hiding there. He found no one. A voice coming from the door said, "Did you find anything?" "No. Whoever caused this must have fled the room before we came here," the ninja inside the room said as he looked at the hole on the far end of the piece. Upon saying that, the second ninja cautiously got inside the piece to confirm what his fellow ninja said. He too looked inside the room and found nothing. He even tried to disrupt his chakra flow in case they were under a genjutsu, but to no avail. He turned to the first ninja to speak when a shadow fell from the ceiling and he felt a hand holding his face and quickly turns it in the other direction, breaking his neck. The second ninja, still analyzing the hole on the ceiling, didn't even notice his fellow ninja death before he choked on his own blood. He had time to look at his torso to see the tip of a kunai protruding from his chest before he fell on the ground. Time seemed to get back to normal as the two bodies fell on the ground at the same time, with Naruto standing in the middle looking disappointed at his victims. They always ignore the ceiling as a potential hiding spot, he thought before moving toward the corridor and closing the door behind him. Knowing that he had few minutes before the others' guards wonder where his last victims are, he quickly and silently moved through the level he was on in search of the stairs leading to the ground floor. He knew that the archives must be enormous, so it was simply impossible to keep them on any of this building's floors. That meant the only place they could be was underground, so he had to go down. It wasn't long before he found the stairs and quickly went down, only stopping at the first floor where he sent 4 clones to take care of those staying at that floor. He didn't want to be boxed from all sides after all, so it was easier to incapacitate everyone in his path. Without opening the door leading to the corridor of the ground floor, he felt 5 ninjas standing all the way. He scowled at that, as that meant at least one ninja would detect him. He could only hope that none of them possessed a device to activate whatever alarms was in place. On the ground floor stood 5 umbus standing at about 5 meters from each other's. They were positioned in a way that they would be immediately alerted if one of them was attacked. Of course, they had never been attacked before, as few people even knew this place existed, so they weren't worried that much. But still, orders were orders, so they kept their guard up no matter how boring the task seemed. Unfortunately, nothing could ever prepare them for what happened in just about a few seconds. The ninja standing at the end of the corridor saw everything in slow motion. Without warning, the door leading to the stairs was blown toward them. Fortunately, the closest ninja easily dodged it by jumping above it, but in a blur a shape appeared under him waiting for him to fall on the ground. Not one to disappoint, he fell to the ground, but at the same time he swung his short sword toward the figure, who sidestepped to the left and retaliated with a backhand to the ninja arm and disarmed him. The second ninja, seeing this, moved in a zigzag pattern toward the two fighting. Naruto looked at him and with deadly accuracy kicked the first ninja toward the second. The two ninjas were slammed on the wall, groaning from the pain. Naruto only had time to look at the other ninjas in the floor to see a cloud of weapons flying at him. Most of them pierced him before he fell on the floor. The Umbu looked closely at Naruto's dead body to confirm his death when it erupted in smoke. Shit! The Umbu swore, as he had to jump backward to dodge an axe kick that slammed on the ground, leaving a dent on it. Before he had time to retaliate, Naruto vanished from his spot and appeared under the ninja. He cut his legs off the ground and with a reverse kick, kicked him toward the ceiling. The fourth ninja had been moving through hand seals for a jutsu when he found himself face to face with Naruto, who appeared above him, and slammed his head on the floor with a backflip. He vanished again and appeared behind the ninja that he sends earlier toward the ceiling. He surrounded his waist with his arms and rotated on himself before slamming the ninja head first on the ground in a perfect mimicry of Lee's lotus attack. The last ninja who saw all this widened his eyes and moved through hand seals for a jutsu that would be impossible to dodge in such narrow corridor. A dragon made of fire erupted from his mouth and charged at the still airborne Naruto. An explosion later and smoke from the impact point. The ninja looked with barely concealed anticipation as the smoke was lifted. But before he could clearly see, a bluish hand made of chakra erupted from it and pierced his belly. He only had time to widen his eyes before he fell on the ground dead. The smoke lifted. Naruto looked around himself and checked that the other ninja were out of it. Finding none of them alive, he moved toward the end of the corridor that the ninjas seemed to protect. There, he found a trap that led underground, but above it was a seal that protected the entry. Thanks to the little lessons he got under Jiraiya tutelage, he was able to determine that it was like the barrier that protected the village. Except this one was a physical one. It seems that it absorbs physical energy and rejects it at the one that produced the energy in the first place. He swore as he finished his analysis. He wasn't a seal master like Jiraiya, so he couldn't create a counter seal for this. Every solution he had in mind would immediately alert everyone in the vicinity of his intrusion. He could live with that, as he had planned to alert Konoha anyway to facilitate his other mission in the village, but he would have preferred to do so in his own terms. Sighing, he went about the process of destroying the seal. No time like the present, he muttered before gathering chakra on his palm and force-feeding it to the seal. This was a method Jiraiya showed him to counter a seal. Unfortunately, it wasn't efficient, as you usually needed a shitload of chakra even for the basic seals, not to mention that by using that much chakra you became a beacon for anyone, thus alerting them of your presence and position. And as if on cue, a blazing alarm sounded through the building and probably in the village too. Naruto thought with a scowl. Taking into account the time needed to cross the village and reach this spot and the time for Tsunade to put together a team to get here, I have at most 10 minutes before they are here. He thought just as the seal broke under the pressure, giving him access to the trapdoor. Back to the village. Back to Tsunade's office, things were getting serious as several ninjas, mostly umbus, were coming to her office. For most of them, they had never heard of this kind of alarm. Usually the alarm was followed by a specific series of distinctive sounds that gave the instructions they were supposed to follow. But this time, they were acting blind, which is why they were going to the Hokage tower to receive their instructions. Yamato too didn't know what this specific alarm meant and was looking around panicked. At first he looked at the two Sanins for guidance but quickly found that they were even less useful than him. That was because Jiraiya and Tsunade knew very well what that meant and had every reason to be afraid. The archive is under attack? How is that possible? No one even knows of its existence. That shouldn't be possible at all. Tsunade was thinking, more like denying the possibility of such a thing happening. It had to happen when I am back in the village. Jiraiya thought, a scowl replacing his earlier horror-stricken face. I told Sensei that keeping such thing would come back to bite us later on, but of course he didn't listen to me. Now we are in this situation. If those information fall into the wrong hands, then we are as good as dead, politically speaking. Their introspection over, Tsunade immediately took charge. Cat. A ninja with a cat mask appeared in front of her. I want you to dispatch the Umbu everywhere in the village to protect every sensible spot. The Umbu nodded before disappearing to execute his mission. He knew that the Umbu had to protect places like the Hokage Tower, the hospital, the academy, and several places of interest in case they were under attack. Another Umbu appeared in front of Tsunade. This one had a rat mask and had a slender figure indicating that she was a woman. Gather all the jounins and shunins and have them cover every exit of the village. I want Konoha on lockdown. No one is allowed to get in or out until the matter is resolved. Having his order, the ninja went away. Another one quickly replaced her. As for you, have the genins evacuate the civilian to safety and stay with them for added protection. Tsunade finished as the last ninja disappeared, leaving Jiraiya, Yamato, and her alone in the office. Jiraiya looked at her with a serious gaze. If the situation wasn't precarious, he would have commended her on her quick thinking. After all, he knew just like her that no protocol was in place to react under this situation. This was done because no one was supposed to know of the existence of the archives. Even now they couldn't send their ninjas toward the area it was situated, as they would ask too many questions afterward. Only those that were in the confidence were allowed to get there. And they are here, it seems. Jiraiya thought as he felt several chakra signatures enter the office in their fighting gear. The first one had long dark brown hair and featureless white eyes. He was wearing the standard uniform of a Konoha jounin and a forehead protector on his forehead. This was none other than Hyuga Hayashi, the leader of the Hyuga clan. The next one to appear had long red hairs and markings on his cheeks. Unlike Hayashi, he wore a black suit completed with armor with the kanji 4 food on it. He also wore a rope belt, hand guards, and a piece of cloth tied around his head. This was Akimichi Choza, leader of the Akimichi clan. Directly on the left of Choza stood another ninja with dark hairs tied up into a spiky ponytail, dark eyes as well as a goatee. A deerskin coat was over his standard Konoha uniform. This was Nara Shikaku, leader of the Nara clan. The final ninja that appeared had long blonde hairs. He wore the standard uniform with a sleeveless red coat above it. This was Inoichi Yamanaka, leader of the Yamanaka clan. Upon seeing the 4 ninjas that appeared, Tsunade gave a thin smile. I see you remember protocol. The only reply she got was serious nod from the 4 of them. I won't enter into any details concerning the situation we are facing, as even myself don't know everything that is going on. I have already dispatched the ninjas all over the village in case the intruders escape. Shikaku interrupted her. Do you have an idea on the identities of the intruders? I have one, but we will talk about it while we move toward the place. She replied before she turned toward Yamato, who was still in the room looking at the happenings. You are coming with us. I have the feeling you will be invaluable soon. Without letting Yamato answer, she turned around and vanished. Jiraiya and the 4 ninjas that came in the room followed her. Yamato was hard-pressed to follow them, as despite being one of the most powerful Umbu right now, it seemed that each of the clan head were well above his level. While every ninjas in Konoha was going toward their assigned position, a lone ninja was stealthily moving through the shadow of the buildings to reach his target. The person had been assigned a mission by his master, and he wasn't about to fail. Before long he reached a compound that belonged to one of the clans of Konoha. Because of the emergency, there were only the minimum guards protecting the compound. Without difficulties he bypassed the guards, as he made sure they couldn't sense his chakra. Then he moved through the different houses with a particular one in mind. Upon reaching the house he easily broke in and searched what he wanted. A few minutes later he found it. It was a big scroll with a clan symbol on it. He knew that the blood of a member of the clan was needed to open it. Fortunately, he acquired it earlier in the day. Satisfied with a successful mission, he quickly exited the room and escaped using another path. He also made sure that he left no trace of ever being there before going. The guards in front of the compound would not know that someone got through them without them knowing. It would be a long time before they noticed the missing scroll, as they didn't use it often. It took 10 minutes for the special team formed by Tsunade to reach the archive's location. That was including the time needed for her to give orders to her ninjas. If it wasn't for this, they would have been here earlier, but there was nothing they could have done about it. They stopped just in front of the building Naruto entered just minutes before they came here. Yamato looked at the building and found nothing noteworthy about it. Appearances are deceiving, he repeated it to himself, and quickly waited for his orders. Tsunade on the other looked at the building in deep thought. If she was right about the identity of the intruder, having Yamato present when they confronted him would be advantageous for them. At the same time, she didn't think that the Umbu was ready to learn what was inside that building. She didn't have to make a decision, as the resident strategist of the village took it from here. It would be better for you. Shikaku looked at Tsunade and Jiraiya to go inside the building, along with Yamato just in case, while we stay outside to stop anyone from escaping. We don't know what the intruders have done to the building. You and Jiraiya are more likely to escape any traps they may have put in place. Hayashi will stay with us and scan the area with his Byakugan, to warn us of anyone getting in or out of the perimeter." Tsunade just nodded at the plan, as she couldn't find a better one. Jiraiya just nodded absently as he contemplated what he would do if it really was his student down there. He went after Tsunade and Yamato as they entered the building, going directly toward the trapdoor. Upon reaching it, Jiraiya noticed the burn marks around the seal that used to block the passage, and a chill went up his spine. He was the one that taught Naruto how to destroy a seal after all. He knew that the latter was brash enough to counter a seal by overloading it with chakra. If it was the work of another village, they would have prepared for such protection and got through this more subtly. The farther they went inside the underground maze, the clearer it was that Naruto was behind this. He could see grinding marks left by what could only be a Rasengan. The three ninjas cringed though when they saw the devastation that was left behind Naruto's wake. Dead ninjas laid on the path. Because of the amount of defeated ninjas, they were beginning to think that Naruto wasn't alone. They simply couldn't conceive that Naruto reached such level that he was able to dispatch a whole garrison of elite ninjas that held the advantage against him, as they knew this place like the back of their hands. But the proof was there. No one seemed to have survived. Before long they reached a huge door that led to the main room. Readying themselves, they pushed open the door and got inside the room, careful not to ignite any traps. But what they saw inside the room wasn't something they expected. Inside the room sat a lone figure on a table. They quickly recognized him as Naruto, not that the latter was doing anything to hide his features. What surprised them was the fact that the shelves were bare. Every scroll had been removed and put somewhere else. They didn't know where, but supposed Naruto had a hand in it. Another big surprise was that Naruto seemed to have been waiting for them to come, as he sat on the table with his right leg crossed over the left. He looked at them and said slowly, "You took your time to get here, Tsunade, Jiraiya, Yamato." The way he talked increased the bad feeling the three had, but they were ninja for a reason. Tsunade, quick to anger, was the first to speak while Jiraiya and Yamato chose to observe. "Naruto!" she yelled. "I am not that far, you know. You don't need to yell at me," Naruto answered, looking at her dead in the eyes. Not perturbed in the least, Tsunade spoke again. "What is the meaning of this? Have you finally lost your mind? You attacked and killed several members of the Konoha forces. Then you infiltrate a protected area?" Naruto took his time to reply to these questions. "For your last question, there was no sign that said it was banned from entering this building, so you will excuse me if I didn't particularly feel the need to ask for permission." Tsunade gnashed her teeth at that, wanting nothing more than to smash the brat mouth. "Concerning the killing of the Konoha forces, they shouldn't have attacked me in the first place. I could even claim self-defense for that one. How was I supposed to know that they weren't enemy disguised in Konoha ninjas sent to capture me in an unknown area of the village?" They couldn't fault the logic of the kid, and if it weren't for the change in personality, and the earlier suspicion toward him, they would have been inclined to believe his story, but as it was, they knew that it was load of crap. "Do you really think we will believe such story?" Tsunade asked incredulously. "Not really, but I wanted to try it anyway. No loss on my side," Naruto nonchalantly added to a fuming Tsunade. "But enough with the jokes. I am sure you have a busy schedule to follow just like me, so I will get to the point." Naruto rose from the table and observed amusedly as the bodies of the Konoha ninjas tensed. What happened to the Uzumaki family? To Yamato, the question was an easy one, and he found nothing suspicious about it, while the two Sanins immediately tensed at that. The reaction wasn't lost on Naruto's part, and it reinforced the impression he got about the two of them. "Mind you, I am not asking for the cover story that is recorded in the public library for anyone to see. I want the truth," he added. Tsunade briefly looked at Jiraiya for guidance before she looked back at Naruto with anger clear in her eyes. "Are you telling me that you infiltrated this place just to learn this? Did it ever occur to you that you could simply have asked us? Do you think I would ask you something like that after discovering that someone, probably a Konoha ninja, had tampered with my mind to stop me from learning the full ability of the shadow clone technique?" Naruto shot back, shocking the Sannin, from the knowledge that his mind had been tampered with, or that he now knew the secret of the shadow clone technique. Only they knew. "I knew this place existed since a long time, but I never saw the need to get inside the building. Recently, though, I learned that several things had been hidden from me by this village. The very village I was ready to lay my life for. If you think that I won't do everything I can to get what I want, then you are sorely mistaken. This village owes me, and I intend to collect it," Naruto continued with venom in his voice. They could see a vindictive satisfaction in his eyes, but they couldn't determine where it comes from. Jiraiya, wanting to defuse the situation and save his student from Tsunade, opened his mouth to speak, but his teammate beat him to the punch. Jiraiya, I don't want any of your excuse right now. I don't care if he is your apprentice, but he has gone too far this time. He will have to answer to the council for this. This time I won't protect him from them. Jiraiya just dropped his head, as he knew that Tsunade was right. She had already done so much for the kid even though he didn't know it, but this time he knew that the boy had gone too far. They wouldn't be able to protect him from the council, especially not from them. If only he had told him about his family earlier. Naruto saw Jiraiya's reaction but thought nothing of it. He didn't know what they were talking about, and frankly he didn't care. He wanted the truth. He wanted to know what happened to his family, and why it was hidden from him in the first place. Nothing would stop him from discovering that. You should have fled from here while you still could, Tsunade said as she cracked her knuckles. Why should I? Because you would have stood a chance at escaping. At least for a little while, until the hunter Nines would have caught with you, she said as she made a coded signal for Yamato for him to get ready. She looked at Jiraiya and knew that he wouldn't be of use to them, as he didn't seem to want to fight his own student. She could understand that, but fortunately Naruto wasn't her student. She considered him like a little brother sometimes, but he would never replace Nawaki, and that was the end of it. You seem awfully confident in your capacity to subdue me if not kill me. I cannot say I am surprised. After all, this village has always underestimated me, Naruto said as he crossed his arms in front of his chest, not even preparing for an attack from his enemy. Tsunade scowled at that. I have the right to be confident, Gaki, unlike you. Without warning, she charged at Naruto and punched him in the face. Or at least tried, as the latter ducked under the punch and retaliated with his own. It was easily blocked by Tsunade, who caught it in a firm grip and launched him toward one of the shelves. Before he collided with it, he regained his balance and softly landed on it, looking down at the Konoha ninjas. Tsunade's scowl deepened, surprised by Naruto's recovery. She smirked though when a tree broke through the shelves and forced Naruto to jump toward her. She immediately prepared herself to punch Naruto, but she could only widen her eyes as the latter vanished too fast for her to follow. What she did felt was the pain that erupted on her belly. She was violently launched to a set of shelves with the chakra from the Rasengan surrounding her body. Jiraiya could only look in shock at what he had witnessed, while Yamato, true to his position as an Umbu captain, kept attacking Naruto with plants. Before the wood could reach him though, a hand made of chakra was formed behind Naruto and went through the wood, completely destroying it in the first place. Yamato only had time to dive to the side as the hand passed by the position he once stood at. But the hand didn't stop there as it turned around and charged at the still-downed Yamato, who could only look in fright at the mass of chakra. An explosion occurred where he stood. Smoke rose from the ground and concealed him. When the smoke was lifted though, Naruto scowled at what he saw. Standing between the hand and Yamato was Tsunade, with her right hand impacting with the chakra arm. Slowly, the arm dissolved as he stopped sustaining it with his chakra and saw Tsunade look at him with a serious gaze, something he only saw when she fought against Orochimaru 3 years ago. Yamato, go beside Jiraiya. It seems that your talent won't be needed in this fight after all, Tsunade said coldly, all the while keeping an eye on Naruto in case he tried anything. Yamato did as he was ordered. He wasn't willing to get involved in what seemed to be a battle way out of his league. Once her subordinate was away from what had become an arena, Tsunade focused entirely on her opponent. She never would have thought that the brat would progress this much. From Jiraiya's reactions she could tell that the techniques he used weren't something taught to him by her teammate, and that worried her greatly. If Jiraiya didn't know them, then Naruto had been able to fool a Sannin for a long time, and that wasn't something that could be done so easily without tremendous skills. She was now reviewing everything she knew about Naruto but couldn't find how it was possible. Are you wondering how I am this strong? Naruto asked, not really expecting an answer. Tsunade just scowled at him. I am at a disadvantage right now. Because of this enclosed area, I can't do too much damage to the ground and wall unless I want to bury us all. That means I have to be careful with my super strength. Also, whatever speed technique he used is very dangerous. I didn't see it enough to create a counter for it, and he is using it sparingly. Maybe so I won't understand how it works, she thought, analyzing the situation she was in. Be grateful, brat. You will get to witness something that few in this world have, she said while closing her eyes in concentration. She knew that Naruto would be curious enough to let her finish charging her technique even though it was stupid. And like she thought, Naruto looked curiously at the technique and waited until it was ready. On the sidelines, Jiraiya widened his eyes at that. Is she really going to use it against Naruto? Does she think he is really that much of a threat to use something as deadly as that? He wondered. He knew that technique was something even more dangerous than her super strength. Something that he didn't want to face even with his Sage mode activated. Before long, Tsunade's body was shining from a bright light coming from her body. She opened her eyes and looked at Naruto with a smirk on her face. You shouldn't have let me finish this technique. Now it is over. Upon saying this, she vanished at about the same speed Naruto used earlier. It was close to the sound's speed, and that shocked Naruto greatly. Fortunately, he was able to dodge the initial strike, or so he thought, as Tsunade changed the direction of her arm at the last moment and slammed her hand on his face. He was slammed on the ground and rolled for several meters before stopping on the wall at the far end of the room. Tsunade was upon him in an instant, and with a series of punches and kicks, she lifted him off the ground. Naruto could only see darkness around himself, as Tsunade pummeled him. In a desperate attempt, chakra erupted from his body, causing an explosion. Tsunade was forced to get back, giving him time to recover as much as he could, but the damage was already done. When Tsunade looked at him once the smoke was lifted, she saw that Naruto had trouble standing on his feet. Blood was freely rolling from his mouth. But what satisfied her more was the pure hate that radiated from his eyes. Finally, I am getting a reaction from you, she thought. She had been getting frustrated with the dull face Naruto showed them. Naruto looked at her, and if look could kill, Tsunade would dead several times over. He was hurt very badly because he didn't have the regeneration granted to him by Kyuubi anymore. He was sure that if it had gone for longer, he would have died. She must be thinking that the Kyuubi will heal whatever damage I receive, that is why she isn't holding back. Even now that beast is ruining my life, he thought with a scowl. Not one to be outdone, he immediately activated his speed technique and vanished in a sonic boom, shocking those present, especially Jiraiya, who was reminded of his late student. How? Jiraiya muttered in a mixed feeling of pride and shock. Tsunade, on the other hand, stayed calm. Of course, she was surprised that the brat was even faster than before, but she had a surprise for him in reserve. And just like she thought, she felt a ball of chakra touch her back. In a reaction time that would render even the Yondaime Reikage green with envy, she rotated on herself and kicked the offending arm to the side. Before Naruto could retaliate, another punch was slammed on his belly. In a puff of smoke, Naruto was replaced with a log was destroyed from the impact. He reappeared on another shelf in the room, looking down at Tsunade with a calculative look. Tsunade, confident as ever, looked at him with a smirk. You see just how hopeless it is, don't you? You may be faster than me, but it doesn't matter in the end. You may have escaped this time by luck, but you will eventually get caught. Do you really think it was luck that made me switch with a log on time? Naruto asked coldly. Gon was joking Naruto, this time he was really getting into it. Despite the techniques I showed you, you still underestimate me? Then let me make you reconsider. Suddenly 3 chakra arms formed around Naruto, with one of them a little above his head. When I made my chakra explode around me, I noticed something that was far more dangerous than the improvement in speed that you displayed. I am sure you showed me that speed improvement on purpose to hide the true nature of your technique. Yamada looked in wonder while Jiraiya clenched his fists. He noticed it so fast. Once the chakra touched your skin, you quickly moved outside the range of the blast. I wasn't sure at first, so I tried to confirm it by attacking you with something that you couldn't see. And just as I thought, your body immediately reacted once I touched you. What the technique really does is increase your reaction time to a godly level. The speed improvement is only a side effect of this. Am I right? Naruto finished to a stunned Tsunade, who couldn't understand how Naruto, a ninja with the attention span of an insect, could have analyzed her techniques so easily. But Naruto wasn't finished. You really did a number on me, and like I said earlier, I have a schedule to follow. So you will have to excuse me. You really think that I will let you escape now that you are boxed in? What do you intend to do? You may have pierced my technique, but that doesn't mean you can counter it, Tsunade said smugly. Naruto just looked impassively at her, and suddenly chakra begins to pour toward the chakra arm that was above his head, forming a Rasengan of epic proportion. The concentration of chakra on that attack will destroy everything around here. Does he want to bury us all here? Yamato thought in fright at the jutsu. I wonder, can you escape a blast that will cover this whole building? Naruto asked with a coldness that froze the Konoha ninja. Just outside the building, Hayashi, Shikaku, Choza and Inoichi had been monitoring the surrounding when they felt a huge discharge of chakra, before a violent explosion was heard. The explosion was so huge that the shockwaves sent them flying toward the trees, knocking them down. The smoke that was lifted could be seen from the village as it went so high into the sky. A few minutes later, enough smoke was lifted to allow those present to see around them. What they saw was the huge crater that was formed where the building once stood. At the edge of the crater, Naruto stood, surrounded by chakra arms. In the middle of the crater, a huge toad and a slug stood. After a while, the two animals opened their mouth to let Tsunade, Jiraiya, and Yamato out. They only had time to see Naruto look at them with the same hate that he displayed earlier and vanish like he was never there in the first place. They still heard his parting words though. I am sure that I will find my answer in those archives. But should Konoha has been involved in the destruction of my clan, mark my words, I will hunt you down to the last one. Konoha. It is said that there is no smoke without fire. What was happening to Konoha at that moment didn't escape that rule. Of course there was no fire in the village, literally speaking, only the smoke that was raised as the aftermath of Naruto's attack. In this case, the fire was of a totally different nature. An hour had gone by since the start of the alarm, and the village was still in lockdown. Most ninjas were panicked. Not because the situation was dire, like an invasion for example, but because they knew not what was going on. They say that ignorance is bliss, but not in this case. This time it was worse than anything Konoha ninjas ever experienced. Fortunately, the shrilling sound of the alarm came to an end. At the archive location, Tsunade, Jiraiya, Yamato, and the clan heads that came were assessing the damage done. They had been going over the crater that now replaced the building, trying to salvage anything, but it was all for nothing. Whatever attack was used had destroyed pretty much everything, or at least rendered it useless. It will take a long time for anything to be able to grow again in this soil. A voice was heard beside Tsunade, who looked pensive. Do you think it is the time to care about such thing? She snapped, not really in the mood. Yamato wisely shut his mouth and kept digging like the others. After a while, they stopped and gathered at the edge of the newly formed crater. Shikaku was looking grim as he was already assessing the consequences of the event, same with the others, except Jiraiya, who was still lost in his mind trying to understand what went wrong. What do you make of this? Tsunade asked her subordinates. It is like you said. Everything is lost. There is no trace of burned papers, only scraps of wood that belonged to the wooden material in the archives. Either the attack disintegrated everything or the scrolls were already taken. Inoichi said. That means he has them. He has all the scrolls that were stored in this place, Choza said gruffly, finishing his teammate's sentence. How the hell did that brat stole every damn scrolls that was in there? It would take an hour at least for several ninjas to get them all. Tension was high in the air as they still couldn't wrap their minds around the fact that a genin, a ninja they had all dismissed when it came to cunning, had been able to successfully infiltrate one of the most guarded places in the village. It was a slap in their face, to their ego, to have been so easily played for fools. Shikaku sighed while lighting a cigarette. It is obvious that he used the clone technique to get this done faster than expected. When we designed the protocol to follow in case something like this happened, we counted on the umbus guarding the place to slow down the attackers for at least half an hour. Add to that the time they would need to break through the seal and shift through the information to get what they want. We calculated that we had a margin of an hour to react. He paused to check that everyone understood what he was saying. The fact that Naruto of all people was able to do the above mentioned in less than 15 minutes is rightfully shocking. Even you, he looked at Tsunade, wouldn't have been able to do the same. To sum it up, we were completely unprepared to deal with this situation. Tsunade said nothing as she looked at the crater. Despite everything being destroyed, bodies of dead ninjas were still present. To think that he would go so far as to kill his fellow ninjas just to know the truth. I shudder to think of his reaction when he does learn it. She looked back at the group of ninjas, specifically Yamato. Contact every members of the council immediately for a meeting in an hour, not a second later. If they ask what this is about, tell them that it is a matter of national security. Yamato nodded quickly before running back to the village. Now that Yamato is gone, what are your real opinions? Shikaku, now free to speak as Yamato wasn't present to listen on things he had no clearance to know, looked at Tsunade dead in the eye, all traces of laziness absent. He is smart. What do you mean? Don't any of you see it? He went all the trouble of stealing everything that was inside the archives. He knew that after what he did, he would be hunted down by our ninjas. He could have been long gone by the time we came, but he stayed. He could even have played the innocent card, as no one would suspect him of anything unless they had solid evidences. He did none of that. Why? Because by having in his possession what could be termed as the black book of the village, we cannot attack him if we don't want to risk him giving it to an enemy. He wanted us to know that he had it. The others looked at Shikaku not really surprised. As always, he was able to see what no one noticed. It wasn't for nothing that he was the lead strategist of the village. Tsunade though wasn't so sure of that. Yes, we won't be able to directly hunt him down, but that doesn't mean other groups will do the same. You mean? Inoichi muttered, not finishing his sentence, as if there was someone currently listening on them. Yes. They won't let it go once they learn just who was behind the attack. Even I cannot stop them anymore, she said darkly as she looked toward the village. Surprisingly enough, even Jiraiya, who had been idly listening their talk, winced when she said that. For the moment though, what should we tell the council? I don't want to create a panic right now, and if we tell them the truth, it won't end well, she finally asked. Only enough to satisfy them. No one knows what happened here anyway. Jiraiya finally spoke for the first time. The group looked at him now, waiting for him to elaborate. Look at it this way, we cannot openly hunt down Naruto, and it would be in our best interest if no one outside of Konoha know that we are missing our Jinchuriki anyway. If you tell them that it was Naruto who did this, then they will demand of you to send ninjas after him. If they know nothing about it, then we can simply come up with a cover story to placate them. Jiraiya explained himself as the others listened attentively. So what you are saying is that we let your student get away with this? Tsunade asked venomously, her ego still bruised by the fact that Naruto escaped her. I never said that. Jiraiya placated her and looked at her with a serious gaze that was very rare for him. Do you have a better alternative? When no one spoke, he continued. I am not telling you to forget what Naruto did, only that we cannot let it be no for now. And like you said, they won't pass such opportunity to get rid of the last Uzumaki. Why not let them do the dirty work for once instead of using our force to do so? Seeing as they didn't outright reject his suggestion, Jiraiya took that as a good sign and turned his back to them. By the way, I am going. I don't have any businesses left in the village. I will get to the mission I was supposed to be at. Before moving though, he threw one last look at Tsunade. For the both of them, it was like time stopped as they looked at each other. Both of them had a bad feeling, as if something bad was going to happen to one of them. But they shook it off as their paranoid nature. After Jiraiya disappeared in a swirl of leaves, Tsunade looked at the remaining ninjas. Let's go back to the village. We have a meeting to attend to. Moving as one, they left the area, heading toward the council meeting room. They made a mental note to come back here and clean the place. An hour had gone by and the members of the council were gathered for an emergency meeting. The room they were in was neither too large nor too small. It contained enough room to accommodate everyone while leaving enough space to move easily. It was designed like an arena with 4 groups of seats, each one reserved to a specific group of the governing body. The first group served as the sitting area of the members of the civilian part of the council. Among them were the heads of the merchant and farming guild, the economic guild, and several others. The second group of seats was the sitting place of the ninja council. Among them were the heads of every ninja clan currently residing in the village. The heads of the Yamanaka, Akimichi, Nara, Hyuga, Sarutobi, Aburame, and several minor clans composed this part of the council. The third group gathered the heads of every ninja department like the torture and interrogation department headed by Marino Ibiki, the Umbu, the information gathering, and the health departments. And finally, in front of the first 3 groups were the seats of the Hokage and the village elders Hamura, Koharu, and Danzo. With everyone present, they could now begin the meeting. The tension was high in the room, as no one really knew what transpired earlier on as they had not been briefed yet. Now that everyone is here, let me open this meeting by saying that we are as of now out of the emergency state. Tsunade's voice boomed in the room, interrupting everyone and getting their attention. I suppose most of you are wondering about the cause of this emergency, and why they have never heard of this kind of alarm. She looked at the audience, and saw their wondering faces, confirming her suspicion. First, let me begin by a short history lesson. She took a deep breath to prepare for the following long speech. Long before the ninja villages were created, ninjas lived in clans. They lived off the money they made from the missions given to them. Because of the kind of missions they took, assassinations, sabotage, and the likes, they had to put in place safety measures in case the employer stabbed them in the back. Usually it was the contract signed by both parties that was used as evidence. This way, should the employer try to betray them, they could simply threaten to release the information contained in those contracts, thereby incriminating him too. Everyone nodded at what was said, understanding the logic in using such protection, especially in a cutthroat world like the elemental countries. The Senju clan was no different. They kept a tight record of every missions and events that affected them. That is why at the creation of Konoha, an underground facility was built to keep track of this information, no matter how useless it seemed. In that place was stored the missions Konoha partaken from his construction to this day. This place was named the Archives. At this point almost everyone present was gaping like fish, as they never could have guessed the existence of such place. They had so many questions they wanted answered and were about to shout them, but a look from Tsunade silenced them immediately, wisely deciding to leave the questions for later. As you can imagine, keeping these records came as a double-edged sword. If the information stored there were to fall into the wrong hands, then it wouldn't only be disastrous to Konoha, but to our client too. That is why an entire division of umbus was assigned to defend the place, and a protocol was put in place in case someone tried to reach it. The alarm you heard earlier was one that alerted the person in the know that the archives were under attack. Tsunade finished looking expectantly at her audience, knowing that they had all kind of questions to ask her, and she wasn't disappointed. Who knew about the existence of that facility? One of the civilian members of the council asked with narrowed eyes. If he had correctly guessed, then few people knew of its existence. Being one of the highest governing members of the village, he was angry that he wasn't privy to such thing. He wasn't the only one though, and Tsunade knew it as she could see the anger clearly visible on their faces. She could either tell them the truth and possibly alienate the 4 clan heads that knew the truth, which wasn't a good thing with the trouble they were currently facing, or lie to them. The decision was an easy one to make. Only the Hokage and the Umbu division in charge of protecting the archives were in the know. We couldn't afford to have too many people knowing the existence of this place. It would greatly increase the risk, so the Shodaime decided to keep it to himself, and the ones that needed to know. The answer was met with outraged responses, as most of those present were grumbling and muttering among themselves. Clearly the Hokages didn't trust them with this secret, and that bruised their ego more than anything. Are you implying that this governing body cannot keep a secret? The head of the health department angrily asked while standing up from his chair. A snort escaped Ibiki's mouth as he heard it, which made everyone look at him. You mean like this body kept the identity of the Kyuubi Jinchuriki secret? This wasn't the same. Another civilian yelled. The people had the right to know who they were dealing with. You can't force us to like that. I mean that boy like you seem to if we don't want to. Ibiki just looked at the civilian, easily conveying how little respect he had for the man. Don't get me wrong, I reserve the right to have my own opinion on someone, but that doesn't mean I mix my personal feelings with my work, unlike some of you. A good part of the audience glared at him, as they knew they were all targeted by the comment Ibiki made. Seeing where this was going on, Tsunade slammed her hand on the table, for once not breaking it but loud enough to gain the attention of the whole room. We are not here to discuss the matter of Naruto Uzumaki, or did you forget what happened not even a few hours ago? The shout reverberated through the room, and a few of the council members felt ashamed of letting their personal feelings control them when they had faced impending doom not long ago. Hamura, who had been silently observing since the beginning, finally opened his mouth to speak, looking at Tsunade. You told us what the alarms meant, but you never said what happened, reminding everyone to focus on the matter at hand. Tsunade nodded as she explained what had happened earlier. Upon hearing the alarm and knowing what it meant, Jiraiya and I went to the archives to investigate. Unfortunately, we came too late as every Umbu had already been killed. Despite the gasp of shock expressed by the audience, she kept going. The whole building and underground facility was littered with dead bodies. There were traces left behind that gave us an idea of the person behind the attack. And surely enough, when we came to the main room containing the scrolls, we found him patiently waiting for us. The room was anxiously waiting for the name of the culprit, as none could draw a breath. Uzumaki Naruto was the one behind the attack. As expected, the whole room exploded in angry yells that could rival a shrilling sound. None were happy to hear this, to hear that someone they had tried to keep under their thumbs his whole life would dare revolt against them. For the civilian, it was the proof they needed to bury their shinobi counterpart, as the latter body had always preferred to keep the Jinchuriki alive. Tsunade looked at all of them, and wondered if she had done the right thing. She had contemplated lying to the council, giving them a cover story that would satisfy them, but after careful analysis, she came to the conclusion that it was too risky. She had no idea what her other opponents knew of the events. It was possible they would capitalize on the cover story to discredit her, and that was something she couldn't deal with right now. So she chose the alternative solution: reveal everything. I suppose the boy is in your custody then if the emergency was cancelled? Danzo asked Tsunade, who looked at him silently. The question also had the effect of shutting everyone. No, was the simple reply he got, making him narrow his eyes. Wanting to avoid further shouts, Tsunade clarified the situation. It seems we have underestimated the boy quite thoroughly. He was able to go toes to toes with me despite using my full power. She ignored the shocked looks of those that knew what she was really capable of. Seeing that we were in a stalemate, he used a jutsu to destroy the whole facility before escaping. The smoke most of you saw was the result of this. Having seen the after effects of the supposed technique that destroyed the archives, most of the ninjas present now saw Naruto in a new light. Because being able to do what their leader had said he did was nothing to sneeze at, quite a few were certain they couldn't do the same after all. While everyone was contemplating what Tsunade said, Danzo had a smirk on his face. This is an unexpected turn of event. It could very well turn out to be a blessing in disguise. Tsunade didn't miss the smirk and narrowed her eyes. Then I suppose we will have to send Hunter Neens after him to be brought back, dead or alive. The audience turned to look at Hamura in surprise. I may have never wanted him to be killed, but now he has become a threat to Konoha, and that is how we deal with traitor. He finished, letting everyone know his views on the matter. Many were surprised because he was among those that refused to execute Naruto when it was proposed several times, always reminding them of the value of having a Jinchuriki in a village. But it seemed that even he had a limit to how much he could condone. That cannot be feasible. Was she not as experienced? Tsunade would have caved under the numerous glares sent her way. But she just took it in stride. While I am all for sending Hunter Neens, it would mean prompting Naruto to release the information contained in the archives to the public. The shinobi in the room were all struck with horrors, having understood what Tsunade was implying, leaving the civilian to wonder what was going on. Oh, I must have forgotten to tell you, Naruto is now in possession of every scrolls that was in the archives, she wanly stated. Now the village had a good reason to be worried, as the person they despised the most literally held their future in the palm of his hands, and they could do nothing about it. With Naruto. While Konoha was assessing the damage done and planning a retaliation, Naruto was quickly fleeing toward a safe spot. It wasn't really a safe spot, more like a place where no one went. Then again, it would be difficult for anyone to reach that area. After all, it was at the top of one of the farthest mountains surrounding Konoha. He had decided to go there first, as he knew the first place Konoha Hunter Neens would be looking for were the ruins of Whirlpool's country. He wasn't afraid to confront them, not in the least, but he had more important thing to do first. For anyone looking at him right now, they would only see a blur, and that was only for the ninjas with the most advanced eyesight. Naruto jumped from trees to trees with one purpose in mind: reach that place as quickly as possible. He looked in front of him and spotted someone standing in the middle of his path. Quickly identifying the person, he came to a stop just in front of him. The person was about the same height as him, and wore a coat with a hood covering most of his face. "How did it go?" Naruto asked the stranger. "As planned. I have the scroll you asked for," the stranger replied before removing his hood, showing a perfect copy of Naruto's face. He frowned though when he saw Naruto wince in pain. "What happened?" he asked, plainly looking at the blood on Naruto's clothes. "Tsunade happened." The clone would have laughed if the situation wasn't so troublesome. "You were able to travel with these wounds?" he asked again while handing the scroll to Naruto, who took it and fastened it around his waist despite the difficulty he encountered in doing so. "It is not as if I have a choice. My confrontation with Tsunade didn't go as planned." "I can see that." Naruto glared at his counterpart for the cheeky remark but continued nonetheless. "Most of my internal organs are damaged right now. The only reason I am still able to move is because I am constantly channeling chakra through my body to lessen the pain." The clone nodded. "This changed our plans then. We cannot do anything until these wounds are healed. What are you going to do?" "This is just a minor setback. I can deal with the pain just fine for now. I will just have to obtain the information from Kabuto's mind quicker than planned. Speaking of which, did the clones take him there already?" "Yes. They already are at the top of the mountain. Anyway, my job is done. Do you need anything else from me?" Naruto thought for a moment before nodding slowly. "Yeah, I want you to erase our tracks in case I left any clues of where I am going. Also, if you can, try to divert them from our real direction." The clone nodded before retracing the path Naruto took while erasing anything that could indicate the current direction Naruto had taken. After seeing his clone disappear in the horizon, Naruto took another look at the scroll and smiled after seeing the symbol of the Yamanaka clan on it, before he looked in front of him and vanished in a burst of speed. A few hours or so later, Naruto finally reached the top of the mountain that would serve as a safe spot for him for the next few weeks. He looked around himself and smiled as before him was a vast plain that would be useful for his training purpose. He could feel the chakra of his clones far away from the spot he was in, which was a good thing, as he didn't want Kabuto to witness his training. Speaking of which, I am still not able to sense his chakra from here. The only reason I was able to sense his position was because he is with my clones. I will have to find a way to rectify this soon. I can't afford to be taken off guard again," he thought while remembering how Sasuke was able to injure him. Forgetting about it for now, he sat on the ground with a little difficulty. "Because of the injuries, I cannot train in anything involving physical activity. I will concentrate on learning everything I can on mind attacks then." He sighed as he slowly opened the Yamanaka scroll and took his time reading it. "For whoever is reading this scroll, I must warn you that what you will read isn't to be taken lightly, because most of the techniques described in this can kill you if they are incorrectly used. First of all, you must understand that mind attacks don't revolve around interrogation technique. Everything that affects the mind or makes use of it outside the body is considered a mind attack. Because of this type of attack is governed by one principle, the mindscape. To attack someone mentally is to enforce upon your target your view of the world or simply you mindscape. ****. Naruto attentively read the scroll as it described that the mindscape was a representation of one's mind. It was a world created by the owner where he is a god as he can do whatever he wants to the place. It also explained that the mindscape was the closest thing to the soul, and as a representation of the owner's mind, it rendered possible the access to information like memories of the owner. Finally, after hours of non-stop reading, Naruto reached the part that interested him the most. To learn how to view someone's memories, you have to follow all of these steps. Reach your mindscape. Project your mindscape to the outside world. Move your mindscape to your target. Take control of your target's mindscape or retrieve the information you need before you are detected or kicked out. *****. Naruto widened his eyes at that as he would never have guessed that the Yamanaka's techniques were that complicated. Nonetheless, he resolved himself to master them, as he was desperately in need of them right now. He knew no medical ninjutsu, and thus couldn't heal himself. He had no choice but to forcibly acquire Kabuto's regeneration technique as the latter would never heal him if asked. It was too much of an opportunity to get the upper hand for Kabuto to ignore. At best, Naruto would be forced to free Kabuto and hope that the latter healed him, as unlike Kabuto he needed the bastard alive to gain what he wanted. He looked back at the scroll and looked at the training exercises described to master each of the steps required. The first step demanded of him to master his mindscape, and to do so, there was several meditation and visualization exercises described. Fortunately, he could already reach his mindscape thanks to being a Jinchuriki, so he didn't think it would be too difficult for him. The second step was about being able to project his mindscape to the outside world. This is where it became tricky. Apparently, the Yamanaka were natural at this, and it was because of this that they were so proficient in doing that. This was the most difficult part, as several ninjas gave up on this step. The last two steps involved moving the mindscape outside the body and corrupting the target's own until you were in control of his mind. With the information needed, he used a cross-hand seal and gathered a huge amount of chakra. So much that it was visible to the naked eye. Then he muttered Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. The clearing was immediately filled with smoke, signaling the creation of clones. Once the smoke was lifted, so many clones surrounded Naruto that he couldn't even keep track of. He guessed that they were about 500 or so. Fortunately, they already knew what they were summoned for, and quickly sat on the ground in meditation posture. Naruto nodded to himself, as he slowly moved away and let his clones train. He was feeling so tired that the only thing in his mind was to take a nap. A few days had passed since the attack dealt to Konoha. Naruto was standing in the same clearing he trained for the past few days. Surrounding him were several scrolls that were placed in no order whatsoever. He was attempting to sort them in a chronological order, as it would make more sense to him that way. Each scroll detailed a mission or an event that took place in the past and affected Konoha or its interests. He had been at it for over 2 days now. When he took the scrolls from the archives, he didn't have the time to sort them, so he just made a huge stack before sealing everything in a scroll. At this time, everything going from the creation of Konoha to the Second Shinobi World War was sorted. That was almost half the archives. It could have been faster if he used clones for help, but he chose not to and instead used them for his needed training. He looked to his left, about 100 meters or so away, and saw to his amusement several teams of clones trying to manipulate their mindscape outside their bodies. Suffice to say that he was very pleased with their improvement. He had mastered his mindscape very quickly thanks to the meditation exercises he used. This also had the side effect of making him more aware of his chakra in general. It increased his control over his chakra and his understanding of the energy itself, but nothing major. When it came to project his mindscape to the outside world, he quickly learned that it was solely based on his will, something he had in spades. He quickly discovered that doing so made him create an ethereal shape for his mindscape. Most users, according to the Yamanaka scroll, shaped the projected mindscape as a copy of their body as it was more natural to do so. For him, though, he demonstrated just how unpredictable he was and instead shaped his mindscape as a formless mist. This had the advantage of not limiting himself to the rational thinking of the human mind. It had been difficult, but nothing he couldn't manage. The results had far outweighed the difficulties, though, as unlike what Ino demonstrated, he could move his mindscape in every direction instead of a straightforward line. He could have began his training on corrupting the target mind then and there, but if there was something that he didn't like, it was to leave something unachieved. He wanted to master everything there was to know about mind attacks. He couldn't afford not to, as there were people out there that would try everything they could to learn his secrets, and why he had an infinite supply of chakra in the hope of replicating it. Sighing, he went back to the work he was doing, all the while ignoring the pain he felt when he moved his body. He now understood why some of the badly damaged ninjas chose to commit suicide instead of living with that much pain. Unlike them, though, he had the hope of getting rid of the pain soon. Meanwhile, a team of Naruto's clones was trying and failing badly to overcome the huge weakness of mind attacks, losing control of their body while materializing their mindscape in the outside world. It was something that they didn't like, but they couldn't overcome this problem, yet. They had tried several ideas already, but none had any successes, although they didn't give up. They tried to keep a part of their mindscape in the body to be able to do both at the same time, but it was like trying to separate a river in two. It worked for a while, but in the end the two parts sought each other to become one again. They thought about using clones for the technique and thus keep the original safe, but they quickly learned that it wasn't so simple. When a clone is created, a copy of the mind is created too. But unlike the original, the copy of the mind is quite frail, even frailier than the clone itself. Because of this, trying to attack someone's mind using a clone was like trying to pierce a rock with paper, impossible. Fortunately, this didn't stop them from training, but in practice, only the original would be able to do any effective mind attack. The clone sighed in frustration and looked at the other members of his team as they were working before going back to work too. Unknown place a week later. In a dark room, a giant statue was sitting on the ground. Only the upper part of the statue's body seemed to get out of the ground. 2 hands were in front of the face. Upon each finger of the statue, a blurry image of a person was visible. One of the tallest shapes spoke. "This is the second time we are gathered in this month. Talk about breaking records. You wonder why we don't see too often with an ugly face like yours, Kisame?" Another shape spoke, grinning like a madman. "Up yours and your retarded god, Haiden," Kisame replied to a screaming Haiden who nastily waved back. "Haiden, shut up, you are wasting my time as it is." Another shape close to Haiden spoke lazily. "What time? The only thing you do is counting your money all day long. Are you taking me for a thief, Kakuzu? It is like you think I will steal it, greedy bastard." Haiden yelled back to a stoic Kakuzu. "Money is everything in this world. You should already be happy that I am hanging with a broken fool like you. Not my fault if your god was so poor he couldn't advertise his cult to the world. Kakuzu, I will kill you." Haiden yelled, but Kakuzu ignored him and instead scoured his ears like everything was perfectly fine. "How the hell are you two still alive with such behavior?" Another wondered out loud. "Maybe it is because they are competent, senpai. Only the weak ones die in this organization after all." An obnoxious voice was heard beside the earlier one. "Are you implying I am weak, Tobi?" The first voice asked with a vein on his forehead. "Of course not, Deidara, senpai, just a coward. But it is a good trait to have. You were able to flee from Konoha teams. This is nothing to sneeze at," Tobi quickly blurted while nodding with himself at the end. Deidara was about to kick the snot out of him when the shape that seemed to possess concentric circles in the eyes interrupted them. "We are not here to listen to your squabble. We are here because Zetsu possesses new information." Everyone looked at the shape with 2 large Venus flytrap extensions that enveloped his head and upper body as he spoke. "Orochimaru is dead," was his short sentence that incited a disinterested reaction from the others. "I wanted to kill him myself," Deidara commented, pouting like a child. "It would have happened anyway with the number of people he pissed off," Kisame offhandedly said. "Who killed him?" he asked Zetsu, who promptly answered. "Uchiha Sasuke." Your brother must have grown if he was able to take care of that snake, Itachi." Kisame looked at the shape beside him, who said nothing and instead closed his eyes. "He has assembled a team specifically to track you down, Itachi," Zetsu finally said, looking at Itachi expecting a reaction, but none came. "Among them are Jugo, the origin of Orochimaru's curse seal, Suigetsu Hozuki, and Karen." "Hozuki, you said? Not bad, he was claimed as a prodigy in the art of killing back in the days. I wonder how long it would take me to chop his limbs." Kisame grinned happily as he said that. "This changed nothing of our plans, Haiden, Kakuzu. I expect you to deliver the Nibi shortly. The other teams, you already have your assignment." The leader was about to dismiss them when he was cut off. "That is not all," Zetsu quickly said as the leader looked at him intently. "There has been an attack on Konoha." At this, most of them widened their eyes, surprised that someone would launch an attack on one of the Great 5 ninja village. It seems that the target was an underground facility that housed something important for Konoha. I wasn't able to find what it contained, but I did learn who did it. He looked at his fellow Nins as they seemed tired of waiting for him to speak. Naruto Uzumaki infiltrated the facility and got away from the village. Because Konoha can't afford to be without a Jinchuriki right now, officially he is in training with Jiraiya of the Sannin. Unofficially, extreme caution is to be used when dealing with him. The missing Nins digested the information they were given and wondered what exactly was in that facility to make someone as loyal as the Kyuubi Jinchuriki go crazy to the point of attacking his village. It is like they are afraid of confronting him directly. Why is that? Kakuzu wondered out loud. Apparently, while in the process of escaping, he went toes to toes with Tsunade fighting at full power and was able to get away. No further information was available, unfortunately. Very well. This may be your chance to get him without Konoha interference, Itachi Kisame. This time I won't accept any excuses coming from you. You are dismissed, the leader said before disappearing from the room. He was quickly followed by the others as their meeting had came to an end and they had other things to do. Fire Country Mountain at the top. There were two kinds of people. The one that were charismatic enough to lead and the one that followed those on top. Kabuto was the latter of the two. All his life he had been under the thumbs of powerful ninjas. It began with Sasori of the Red Sands, although for his defense, he didn't choose that position. He could still remember how he met the missing Nin and was soundly beaten to the ground. It was only because of Sasori's mercy that he was left alive. In return he became Sasori's spy willingly or not, thanks to a clever seal that was implanted on his body. During those years he learned quite a lot as he was given a purpose to live no matter how malicious the purpose was. He had seen the way Sasori used dead corpses as puppets and had by then been fascinated by the art of manipulating the dead. In the hope of strengthening his already vast knowledge in the art, he learned medicinal techniques. After all, the best way to understand the dead was to understand the livings. At least that is what he thought. It wasn't long before his prowess in the medicinal art gained the attention of the Snake Sannin. His relation with the late Sasori was also a bonus. That is why when Sasori sent Kabuto to spy on Orochimaru, the latter used this opportunity to free Kabuto from the Sasori's influence, by removing the seal, and use him for his own purpose. That is how Kabuto came to be under the thumb of another master. Once again, he didn't complain as it allowed him to pursue his quest of knowledge. Granted, the life of a spy was a dangerous one, it still brought tremendous advantages to him as he had access to forbidden lore he would otherwise have never gained. One of his greatest achievements was the creation of his regeneration technique using the knowledge he had amassed. It was a combination of his expertise in the medicinal art and the art of manipulating the dead that allowed him to create such technique. A technique that defied the natural order of things. Orochimaru had of course been interested in it, but upon hearing the knowledge he would have to master first to use it, he quickly diverted his attention elsewhere, as he already had his own regenerating technique. He could always learn it later on when he got the time. This worked perfectly for Kabuto, as he had neither the will nor the time to teach it to his master. Sasuke too learned of the specifics of the jutsu and tried to copy it. The result was as expected, he failed spectacularly. To keep his ego unbroken, Sasuke deemed the jutsu worthless. But it didn't matter in the end, because it meant no one would steal his hard-gained technique. When another person expressed the wish to learn the elusive technique, he at first dismissed the person as being foolish to even think he could. Not to mention the fact that it was the dead last of Konoha, the one genin labeled as worthless in anything other than brute strength that tried to acquire the technique. Of course he wouldn't take Naruto seriously. But that notion changed when he was not only captured by said genin, but held prisoner for several weeks straight. Don't get him wrong, he could be captured like every other ninjas, but he had never been held prisoner for more than a few days at most before finding a way to escape. This time around he found no opportunity to get away. His hopes had even decreased when he found out it wasn't Konoha that held him prisoner, but Naruto himself. How had he learned that? Maybe the fact that no one came around during his time as a prisoner, or maybe because the team of Naruto's clones had moved him far away from the village for a long time now. Of course he thought it could be a plot to make him cave in quickly, but he didn't think Konoha would risk him escaping by leaving him with a genin that had been deemed as a flight risk. After careful analysis he concluded that Naruto really kept him prisoner no matter how scary it was, as the latter was unpredictable in his method to obtain information from him. During his time in this mountain he tried to find an opportunity to escape but found none. The clones kept him under watch 24 hours a day, never leaving him alone. He was given food and water once every 3 days to further weaken him in case he tried to escape. One thing he was able to glean though was that Naruto was training on the other side of the mountaintop. Training for what he had no idea, but he hoped it wasn't something that would be used against him. Today though was different as the air was very chilly, and he had a bad feeling. It only worsened when he saw an injured-looking Naruto slowly walking toward him, a smirk firmly plastered on his face. Within moments his abductor was standing in front of him, while the team of clones held him down in a kneeling position. How the mighty have fallen. I half expected you to shout at me the moment you saw me. Naruto spoke as he eyed his captive briefly, looking at his body. Then again, with the little amount of energy you have, you must be saving it for a pointless escape attempt. Knowing that Naruto was baiting him, he remained silent and observed him. He was trying to predict Naruto's next course of action but was failing so far. No matter how much he analyzed everything, he couldn't find Naruto's goal. Had he given up on learning his secret technique? He wondered, as further interrogation about it never happened. The truth was that Naruto was unreadable to him. You must be wondering what I want. He heard Naruto ask and shuddered. It was frightening to know that your enemy could read you while you couldn't do the same. For several days now I have been training in mind attacks with only one purpose, to invade your mind. You said that it didn't matter if you wanted to teach me, as I had neither the knowledge nor the talent to learn from you, but I beg to differ. Your mind will provide me with plenty of knowledge, and all I need to learn that technique of yours. Kabuto's eyes widened in shock as he listened to Naruto. Of course he knew that Naruto could learn his technique if he could somehow get a hold of his memories, but he knew the latter lacked the mind attacks needed to do so. To learn that his enemy had taken a whole week to learn mind attacks solely to obtain his needed information was scary. But that fear quickly vanished as he reminded himself that it took decades to reach the level needed to attack someone's mind, especially his own. That was why a ghost of a smile appeared on his lips as he defiantly looked at Naruto. You expect me to believe that you have reached the level needed to literally mind rape me? He laughed even more as he saw how serious Naruto looked. Even if it were the case, do you think I wouldn't learn of ways to protect my mind, especially in my line of job? The last part was said with a sneer as he waited for Naruto to cave in, but the latter did none of that. He simply grinned like he didn't care and put his hand on his head. We will just have to see who is more proficient, won't we? Was the last thing he heard as his eyes rolled in the back of his head. Lazily standing in what looked like an unending clearing was Naruto. He looked around himself, assessing the world he landed in. The whole clearing looked rather gloomy even for Kabuto's standard, but that was to be expected for someone with such obsession with the dead. In front of him was what looked like a giant cemetery that stretched so far away he couldn't see the end of it. He is using a cemetery as a mindscape? Naruto wondered as he looked around himself. Having an idea just what the tombs scattered around the place would be used for, Naruto sighed before putting one knee on the ground, quickly followed by the palm of his right hand. Upon touching the ground, he closed his eyes in concentration before opening them again. Unlike before, the ground was now replaced by two main colors. The first one was purple and covered about 99% of the clearing, while the second one was blue and covered the rest. The blue color was under Naruto's feet and represented Naruto's own mindscape, while the purple one represented Kabuto's. This was something he had learned quickly when training and corrupting the mind of his targets. He first trained on his clones before sending them to a village at the bottom of the mountain to try it on unsuspecting people. During his training, he came to assimilate the corruption of one mind to one simple concept: a territorial battle. When you attack someone's mind, you are essentially converting their mindscape to your own, thereby overriding theirs. The more ground you take, the more information you gain. That is why he came up with a technique to see the amount of territory he had overrode instead of guessing. Once that was done, he nodded to himself before initializing the strategy he created in order to easily corrupt a target's mind. Slowly, a white mist erupted from his body before forming several strange-looking creatures that flew away while he advanced toward the tombs. Just as he expected, several dead people got out of the tombs. So this is his defensive system? How human-like to use dead ninjas as guards, Naruto thought as he looked at several dead bodies with jounin ninja attires. They were quick to attack him with powerful elemental techniques that would be quite impossible to do in the real world. Before the elements could touch Naruto, though, they simply vanished as if they never existed in the first place. If the dead ninjas had any emotions, they surely would have widened their eyes, but as it was, they remained stoic. In the blink of an eye, Naruto was behind the group of ninjas, and like a puppet without his string, they fell to the ground, slowly turning to ash. None knew what had happened, and there wouldn't be anyone to wonder, as Naruto kept moving toward the other end of the clearing. A mile or so away, Kabuto stood in attention, observing the quick progress of his enemy. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. It was simply unheard of. Not even an hour had passed and Naruto was already closing on his position. He could only marvel at the ease Naruto dispatched his guards. Even Giant Snake Summon did nothing to stop him, and that was something to behold. The power of his mental constructs directly depended on the mastery of his mindscape. The more understanding he had of his mindscape, the stronger the constructs became. He wasn't someone who bragged about his accomplishments, but he knew that he had mastered his mindscape a long time ago. Proof of that was the fact that even the best interrogators in Oto couldn't get past his first defenses. To see a kid bypasses them as if they were made of paper was both frustrating and appalling. This only means one thing: Naruto must really have mastered this art to an unprecedented level, he thought as he saw Naruto dispatch one of his most powerful guard, the Night Aim Hokage, by turning the area in an arid desert before increasing the air pressure around the Night Aim, making him implode. An angry growl escaped his mouth before he moved himself to meet with his current nemesis with only one thing in mind: beat the shit out of him until the latter begged for mercy. Meanwhile, Naruto kept moving at his leisurely toward his target, a giant castle covered by what looked like an energy dome. So far, he was disappointed in Kabuto. He could understand the appeal in using legendary ninjas to protect his mind, but it was simply too narrow-minded for his taste. This was something he noticed in almost every person he had attacked, and that possessed a modicum of competency in protecting his mind. They limited themselves to the human ability. This was clearly stupid, as their mindscape was theirs to do as they pleased. They could create unheard of ability that would surprise the attackers, but they did none of the above. Most of his own mindscape attacks were completely imagined, and he couldn't replicate them in the real world, not that he had tried anyway. What in being the god of their mindscape could they not understand? He wondered as he walked toward the castle. Suddenly he jumped backward as an angry Kabuto fell where he was before like a hammer, creating a huge crater. "This is as far as you will go," Kabuto growled as Kusanagi materialized in his hand. He sent Naruto a death glare, but the latter seemed unaffected. "I was wondering when you would come. I even started to think you were hiding yourself," Naruto dismissively told Kabuto. "You think that because you have reached so this deep in my mind you have won?" Within moments, Kabuto was upon Naruto, slashing his sword on his torso. The attack was so fast that Naruto never saw him move in the first place. "You are in for a rude awakening. I am different from my constructs, about 1,000 times if you want to know," he yelled while grinning madly as Naruto was backing away from him. So fast, Naruto thought, as Kabuto was forcing him in the defensive. He ducked a slash above his head only to receive a knee to his chin. A punch to his rib came next before he felt a searing pain in his feet. He looked down only to see the ground having turned in molten lava. His eyes widened before he jumped to the sky, but waiting for him was Kabuto with an axe kick that sent him back to the lava. Kabuto watched as Naruto sunk in the hot liquid gleefully, happy for a job well done. He looked around himself to check that Naruto was really dead, and upon finding nothing he smiled. A laser-like beam went through his belly, violently erasing his smile, making him turn around to see who attacked him, but what he saw stunned him. Behind him stood 4 misty-like creatures that combined before slowly reforming his nemesis body that looked at him with a smile. "Impressive. For you to possess such power even in your mindscape, you must really be at master level. You really surprised me for an instant." Kabuto scowled at the condescending tone but didn't let it distract him. "I don't know how you were able to do that, but it matter not. In the end you will fall like others before you. Didn't you realize yet that I am invincible in this world? Look around you. I can command the nature with a simple wave of my hand," he gloated as he created a tsunami with a flick of his wrist that was launched at an unmoving Naruto. "You haven't noticed it yet, have you?" Naruto softly asked as the tsunami simply vanished as if it had never been there in the first place. All around the two fighters the landscape was covered by 2 colors, purple and blue. Unlike before though, the blue was everywhere. The only place it wasn't was a few meters away from Kabuto, who had long since realized what it means. "How?" He stuttered, completely overwhelmed by what was happening. "How did you conquer my lands without me noticing?" The desperation was clear in his voice as he could feel himself slowly losing whatever control he had left over his mind. "It is simple, really. I applied a type of attack I always use in battle, clones," was the simple reply. "But that is impossible. It is impossible to create a copy of the mindscape. The copies will always seek each other too quickly to be of any use," Kabuto yelled as he felt himself slowly drifting to unconsciousness. "What you say is true, but who said you couldn't extend the time before the copies seek each other?" He ignored the medic Kabuto gasp and continued. "What I did was simply attack your mind from several points at the same time. Of course I distracted you by making a frontal assault. You were so focused on the one destroying your constructs that you never noticed other parts of your mind being overridden by my clones. Even then I would have noticed the decrease in my power if you were slowly taking control." Kabuto's eyes widened at this point as he finally learned the last piece of the puzzle. You let me keep my power until you had gained enough control of my mind as not to arouse suspicions. You bastard." He never finished that sentence as his mind was completely overwhelmed by Naruto's. Once that was done, the landscape shattered like glasses, letting place to several pieces of paper surrounding a huge brain. Naruto looked at it with a genuine smile because he had taken control of Kabuto's mind. I can finally learn everything about that regeneration technique," he said out loud as he looked at the different pieces of paper that represented Kabuto's memories. Konoha, Hokage's office. Meanwhile, the tension was high in Tsunade's office. Currently faced with several ninjas all belonging to the Konoha 12, Tsunade's face was grim as she was digesting the information she received from one of Jiraiya's Toad summon. The information delivered was so important and surprising that it completely changed the game. Of course it was bound to happen someday, but they thought it wouldn't come to pass for a long time yet. She looked at her subordinates, and couldn't help the frown that marred her face. In front of her stood the members of Team 8, Hinata Hyuga, Kiba Inuzuka and Shino Aburame, and Team 7 or what was left of it, Sakura Haruno, Kakashi Hatake and Yamato. While they were powerful in their own right, she couldn't help the thought of them being too weak to deal with the mission she was about to give them. First was Kiba. He was a Chunin, and quickly on his way to become a Jounin. He had progressed tremendously, especially in taijutsu and clan-related techniques. Unfortunately, his progression rate was great only when compared with normal ninja. He didn't think it would be that great against the ones she was sending them after. Then there was Hinata. While she had lost her annoying stutter, and had gained more confidence in herself, she hadn't reached her true potential yet. She was a Chunin like her teammate. She will be great for scouting the targets, Tsunade thought as she moved her analysis to the last member of Team 8. Shino, the only special Jounin of the team. He was still as stoic as ever. Nothing could really surprise him these days. Unlike his two teammates, Tsunade found him well on his way to reach his true potential, especially if what his father had said was true about the kind of bees he was now using. Next, Tsunade looked at her own student with a mixture of pride and shame. Pride because Sakura was well on her way to surpass even her in the medicinal art. It was only a matter of experience now, and that was something she would acquire soon enough. Shame because her student's abilities in combat was average at best. Not what would be expected from someone apprenticed to a legendary Sannin like her. Despite everything, she is still not ready. Her body cannot cope with the stress generated by my secret technique. After this mission I will have to increase her physical training. Right now she is by far the weakest of the 3 Sannin apprentices. Sooner or later they will fight, and I hope she is ready by then, or she will be eaten whole by them, she thought while narrowing her eyes. To Sakura's right was her first teacher, Kakashi. Tsunade looking at him, and nodded. She knew he could have become more than what he was, but tragic events decided otherwise. At least he has resumed his training, was her thought concerning the white-haired man. Finally she looked at Yamato, and was happy with the level the latter reached, especially in controlling her grandfather with jutsus. Without any notes whatsoever, Yamato was able to recreate some of the late Shodaime jutsus, and that was nothing to sneeze at. Her study over, she looked at all of them and grimly spoke. A few hours ago, I received important intelligence from Jiraiya. This information was so important and unexpected I decided to gather all of you for a special mission. The mission will begin immediately after this debriefing. Everyone looked at her and stiffly waited for an explanation, knowing the matter was important. I will get to the point. Orochimaru the Snake Sannin is dead. She ignored the bulging eyes in favor of detailing the information. From what Jiraiya was able to gather, a fight erupted in one of his bases and the result was his death. Immediately afterward, all of his bases erupted in anarchy as they are fighting to determine who will become the next leader. Who killed him? Kakashi asked, having put away his favorite reading material. Tsunade looked directly at Sakura as she answered the question. Uchiha Sasuke. If they weren't shocked before, they were now expressing disbelief at hearing their late companion was able to dispatch such legendary ninja. Sakura, on the other hand, had a smile on her face as she guessed her estranged teammate would finally come back to Konoha, no matter how ludicrous the thought seemed. I see. Kakashi began as he sighed and scratched the back of his head like Naruto used to do. Tsunade noticed the gesture, but she made no comment. I suppose you have assembled this team to hunt him down in the hope of capturing him, haven't you? Once again Tsunade was pleasantly reminded how much Kakashi was able to read under the lines. You guess right, Kakashi. With Orochimaru out of the way, it is obvious that Sasuke will make a move on his brother Itachi. And considering how dangerous Itachi is and the possibility of confronting him during our mission, you chose to send 2 teams instead of 1 to deal with Itachi. Yamato continued as the others attentively listened. You are partially right about that. It is true that I chose 2 teams to deal with Itachi in case it happened, but it is also because you will need that much number should you encounter Sasuke himself. Surely this is too much for him. I like the concept of using big guns to squash bugs, but isn't it too much? Kiba protested loudly while boasting their capabilities. You assume Sasuke is at the same level as you are. Tsunade replied, shutting Kiba's mouth. I suppose you could be excused as you didn't know Sasuke fought Sakura, Yamato, and another Chunin-level ninja and remained unscathed while sparing them. The members of Team 8 looked at Sakura and Yamato in shock while the latters looked down in shame.